All right. Thanks again for joining us here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. They're all fun, but this one's going to be real fun I don't know. There's a whole litany of reasons why this one will just be fun. I can foretell the future right now. Please help me welcome. I know we're doing Troy University 2 times in a row here on the podcast. We're not changing the format. We're just going to do it for these 2 times, but help me welcome head coach and assistant coach from Troy University, Marc Davis and Michelle Clayton. And we've got a special guest star. If you're watching on YouTube, you've already seen her, but we've got a guest star. We've got little Miss Maddie. Can I call you little Miss Maddie? We got to get a mic. I don't know if I want to get a mic hooked up to her, but we'll let it go. Marc and Michelle, thanks for joining us today. How are we doing?
Great.
This is going to be fun. So if you haven't read the description yet, we're going to spoiler alert this. So Marc and Michelle, and if you haven't figured out because we have Maddie here, Marc and Michelle are married. So not only do we have track and field coaches, but we have a family unit here. And I've done this once before. So I had Nicole Farr Kramer and Eric Kramer on the podcast early in the days. They were one of the early adopters. I really appreciate them. And the very first question I asked them is the very first question I'm going to ask you guys. So we've got a married couple here. How are you guys who's going to talk first? How are you who's going to talk over? How are we going to handle the communication side of it?
Whatever is the most appropriate to the question.
Oh my, that was the best PC answer. Wow.
Non-committal answer.
If you're watching on YouTube, both Michelle and Maddie pointed towards Marc, by the way. So I think we got our answer. We'll see what reality comes out to, but we at least know what the intent is going to be.
Correct.
Exactly.
I'm so non-intelligent about things. I just now realized it's Marc, Michelle, and Maddie. It's all M's. Was that intentional? I don't know why. I just never noticed that until now.
I want you to guess which one of us had that idea.
I don't know. I guess I'll go with Michelle.
Yes.
Exactly.
My family, we were, there's 4 girls and we were all M's. So I had this thing that when Marc and I met and it went to us being married, if we had kids, it was going to be an M. So
it was like,
we are.
There was no discussion is what I'm hearing.
Not really. Not really. Did you hear what she just said? Yeah, that's off the table.
That is, hey, Maddie, that's on record. We have that. That's public knowledge now. So
she announced that in the middle of the ocean this past summer. We went down for a day and just out of nowhere screamed, "I want a little sister!" And we both were like, "Excuse me? No, ma'am."
Yes, I want a little sister.
You know, Maddie, I hate to break it to you. Christmas is already coming past and you didn't get your present. So sorry.
I got
and another year older.
You'll have to be the center of attention for longer.
Forever.
Well, this is a great example of one of the reasons that I wanted to have you 2 on here. One, of course, is your coaches at the greatest university in the world. Anybody who's listened more than once has heard me say that 1 billion times, but it's true every time I say it. But also that as a married couple, that's a very interesting dynamic. So, a lot of people listening right now are track coaches themselves, whether on the high school or college level. It's kind of hard to imagine your spouse being on the same staff as you. Talk to us about what are some of the unique positives to having your husband and or your wife on the same staff as you.
Well, I think the positives pretty obvious with that. I mean, we're able to do things and kind of do it as a family, not as it pertains to us, but with the kids. It's like mom, dad, Uncle Elliot, and just our big family of children, and it helps to have that dynamic. Some will come to me, some will come to Michelle for the motherly advice and things like that. It's just it's a good dynamic. And another thing too is we're able to do a lot of things at home because we're always together. We're able to talk about workouts. We're able to talk about what we're going to do at this meet. We're able to talk about travel, hotels, vans, meals, whatever. Like our brains never shut off when it comes down to it. So now that's also a negative at times because your brains never shut down. We're constantly thinking about this stuff, but I think it always helps when you have somebody that's in your corner day to day, and we see, everything that's going on, and we bring it back home and we're talking about it. We're making sure that we're putting these kids at the forefront of what we're doing.
It sounds like the never-ending staff meeting.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we're getting close to 100 different guests here on the Connections, and no one has ever said their favorite part of coaching was staff meetings.
Right. And it's really not. We're always talking about the logistical stuff, and we're always talking about like things that are going to be extremely confusing when it comes down to it. And we have talked about it over and over and over and over again. Then when we incorporate other people and then other ideas come in, then it's like we think things are going haywire, but it's like, you know what? Somebody else has had a pretty good idea that's kind of, they're thinking outside the box a little bit. It's different than what we're thinking, but actually works. So let's go with that as well. So
that's a good
I think one of the great things about us, we're able to have that dynamic, but then look from the outside too, and let our coaches coach and offer suggestions and things.
That's a good point. I see the advantages of, having another member of your staff around you 24/7, right? Because you get to talk about a lot of things like that. But do you ever find yourself, I'm gonna use the word click, maybe not a great word because you're a family, not a clique, but do you ever find yourself cliquish in the sense of you've already discussed it 100 times over, and now you have assistant coaches, which you have a lot of great assistant coaches. Now they're brought into it and they have maybe different opinions.
Right.
I can speak on that quick because Marc's really good with, he'll speak with Elliot, like if it's something, I don't know, there's different, I can't think of a scenario off the top of my head, but he'll talk to Elliot about it and get Elliot's thoughts. And then he'll talk to Riley and get Riley's thoughts. And then maybe 6-8 hours later, when we're sitting on the couch, finally at 9-10 o'clock, he'll say, all right, so I've spoken to Elle and Rye about this. What do you think? So he does a really good job, I guess, as the head coach, that makes sense, but he does a really good job of incorporating everybody where the three of us don't ever have to worry about that. It's never, well, Michelle's going to take care of that, or, oh, he's not going to ask me. He really brings all three of us into the conversation. So that works out nicely.
And I do think that that's how you keep a staff positive. You don't always want it. There are some times when a decision has to be made and you don't incorporate anybody else. You just do it and you move on and you hope that it's the right thing. But there are other ways where you have to get other involvement because, track and field's a different type of sport. There's a million different events and a lot of different kids. I mean, we started this season with 107 kids on our roster across the board. So you have to be able to have other opinions. Otherwise, things aren't really going to work. And it's going to look like one side is favored over the other. And that's not what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to build a team.
Yeah, I'm not sure many coaches, I think some head coaches can certainly get to the head coaching level and have some success, but I don't think they can stay there and have sustained success if they're not utilizing their staff. If they're just trying to do 100% of the decisions, that typically does not last very long.
Right. And, I try to keep it open like that.
Yeah. Do you feel, and maybe you don't have a basis to relate this to, but do you feel you have to work extra hard because of it? And it being, going home with one of the staff. That sounds terrible. Being married to one of the staff.
I think at first, when I first got here, I thought about that a lot. I didn't want it to seem as if the only opinion I was going to listen to was either mine or Michelle's, because it's not going to work that way. And there's going to be resentment. And, we all do a large portion of the work. We all do, from me to Michelle, to Elliot, to Riley, to the GAs that are here. We do a lot of work trying to make sure this thing stays afloat. So, like I said, the first couple of years, I really did worry about that just because of the situation. After that, Elliot's been here the whole time. Michelle obviously has been here the whole time. We've worked together for 6 years, 7 years. And, you know, Riley was one of our athletes as a full-time person. So that helps too, because she knows the system. The GAs, one of our GAs was on the team for 4 years, but he's been around now for 5. So he understands what's going on. We have a new person that's that's just kind of flowed. But if you look at our people that we've had over the past couple of years, they've had a close, you know, they had a close relationship to the program. And, you know, Camille Alexander, who is now at Virginia Wesleyan, you know, she was here from the time that we got here up until last year. So she knew everything, just kind of flowed because we knew what we were doing from year to year. And I think that's what's made it really work.
So you mentioned the positives. What are some of the, you know, it's hard to say negatives, right? But maybe what are some of the things that you have to work harder on, or that you find, you know, that aren't always the fun side of life, being a married couple who works together?
You want to know what this one is? For me, I'll tell you, it is the fact that, again, we don't get away from work. You know, we're constant, and that's the one thing I've always said that you know, if people ask what the hardest part is, that is it. You know, sometimes, you know, there are differing opinions of how, you know, a particular kid is producing or things like that between the two of us. I mean, we talk about this kind of stuff. So not being able to get away with it or get away from it is the hardest part. At the same time, I think that's also what has, you know, made us better. That negative right there is what's made us, you know, what we are today. And we still have a long way to go, but we've made, you know, big strides in the past 6 years.
I think probably the negative, I'm going to put this on me, is I know Marc's brain never stops. He thinks about it all the time, and he's always trying to figure out, you know, what to do better with a workout or a kid or a situation, academics, whatever it is. But he does men are usually better at this, does a very good job of being able to kind of compartmentalize that and put it away. Like when we come home, I don't walk in the door at 7:30 and the first thing Marc says is, "You're not going to believe what so-and-so did." But the flip side is true. I am very much that way. My brain never goes off. I don't sleep. It's been that way my whole life. And I have to talk about it. So when I walk in the door, the very first question I get is, how was the weight room? I'm not good at saying, oh, it was great. We had 3 awesome groups today. I go through like all 18 racks that are in the weight room through my brain. And I'm like, well, so-and-so and so-and-so wasn't there, and this didn't. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And Marc just sits there and he says, are you done? Oh, yeah, actually I am. I'm not at work anymore.
Right.
So it can be, the negative of that part is, I think, more on me, because Marc does a very good job. Like there's a lot of things, people don't believe this, especially the athletes. If something goes awry, you know, personally or academically or whatever it is, Marc does not tell me unless it is something, one, I ask about, or possibly one of my athletes. But he doesn't, you know, say so-and-so fails a class. He doesn't pick up the phone and call me and say, Michelle, you're not going to believe this. I usually find out by either emails from academics a week or so later, or I hear him and Elliot talking. And then I'm like, huh? What? What'd you just say? And he's like, zip it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. So he does a tremendous job of, he truly is, and I'm not saying that because I'm married to him. That could be, you know, something that I would think is a positive. But for us, I find that to be a very, very strong positive, that he's able to keep things really to himself. Because whatever I hear, whatever, he'll be like, what gossip did you hear today? And I'm like, God, that's horrible asking me. But I listen constantly, and I pick all this stuff up, and I'll come home and just blah, 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 all of it out at him. And he's like, okay, can we eat dinner now?
Well, yeah, we'll come back to it later. Or sometimes I won't even bring him back up again.
So Michelle, and we're going to get into the history of, you know, how you guys met and everything. But, you know, as you just described that, Michelle, that he does a good job. Do you think is that in his nature to be that way, that kind of compartmentalized leadership? Or do you think because you've known him for many years now, has he really had to work towards that?
No, that's Mark in a nutshell. I think most people, like if we get to talking and I say that we're both actually under the surface quite shy, people are like, you're crazy, you're not shy. Coach D, we can see that. So it comes off as shyness more for him that way, because he just really internalizes, finds a place to put it and puts it there and deals with it. If somebody else has to be brought in, they get brought in, whether that's the athlete, another coach, administrator, whatever. But yeah, we're very different, and he's always been that way. Thank God. Because if we were both like me, we'd have some problems.
I don't say a whole lot all the time.
We would have done this interview one-on-one. We wouldn't have done two versus one if it had both been towards Michelle's personality. Couldn't have handled it.
Oh, definitely not.
That's right.
And it's tough. It's tough being a coach, having an outside life, meaning outside friends who are not in the profession, right? It can be a little tougher, even more so being in Troy, being in a smaller community. This is a terrible question. Do you have outside friends? Do you have non-athletic personnel friends?
Yes, actually.
That was not an immediate yes. And the face Michelle gave says that might not be complete.
No. So yes, I do, because I like motorcycles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some people that have nothing to do with athletics that we go and ride together every so often, or we do different things. So I have some people, not a whole lot now, because we don't have time enough to really do it in normal years. And, in this pandemic year, I haven't seen them either. So it's, we have some, but they're few and far between. I will say that.
For your friends that are, I'm gonna call them couple friends, like maybe you go before COVID, maybe you'd go out on, couples dates together and things like that. How would they describe you two's dynamic?
Man. I think they know, they know we're very different. I am, obviously, this. It's going to probably backhand me when I say it, but I am the quiet one more often than not. And, we kind of, I guess I offset her, she offsets me, and it works well. I mean, I think they know that in order to be able to do this together, we have to love each other and we have to understand each other, because otherwise this is not going to work. And if there was a part of us that resented what the other person is doing, which is very easy to do in the coaching profession, this definitely couldn't have worked. It definitely couldn't have worked. So I think that they know that the bond is strong, and they know that we are very, very close people. We're very, very close in this relationship. I would agree. I hope you agree.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, good.
Yeah, hey, this is the Gill Athletics Connections, Track and Field Connections podcast, not marriage counseling. Please.
I was about to say the same
Yeah.
thing.
We're good.
Don't rely on me to help with that side of it. All right. I'll make some phone calls, but we don't want to go there. They call me the wedge. I'll drive you apart. I don't want that. Remember, today's number one goal, I forgot to announce this from the beginning. Today's number one goal is, no divorces in today's podcast. That is the number one goal. If we can get past that, this is gonna be a great episode.
I think we're good.
Yeah,
We'll be all right.
Been there, done that. Don't want to do it again.
Okay, good. That's right. One and done. That's right. So what, would your friends, do you guys, when you're out with other friends, non-athletic friends, do you talk about anything else besides track?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'll be the first to tell you, when I am not at the track and not with other track people, the last thing I want to do is talk about track and field at that point in time, because it is through the season, that's all we're doing. And I love the sport. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it for the last 26 years. Can't believe I'm saying that, but at the end of the day, you have to have something else, and you have to be able to talk about something else. And
So I know.
I try to stick to that. My
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say my brain may be working, but I'm not gonna actually spew out the track and field stuff with other people who don't even understand what we do. Because inevitably, one of the questions is, what do you guys do
all your non-track friends are thankful
all day, all year?
Yeah. So I know one of those things
Yes.
that you have outside of track is your motorcycles. Michelle, what do you have outside of track?
Mm-hmm.
God. Mike, I work out. That's my escape, basically. I still operate on I don't want to ask I'm getting older, not old, but older.
Old.
Stop.
Yep.
I still try to operate on, I don't want to ask my athletes to do anything that I can't do myself. So I kind of hold that over my head and it just kind of keeps me motivated so that I stay somewhat fit. But that's my escape. Even though I do talk a lot and
There we go.
all of that, I really am a loner. I like to be alone. And with this being, with the little nugget and Mark and I being the true family dynamic and everything we do is together, that's, whether it's a 3-4 mile run or an hour and a half lift, that's my time to get away. That's how I deal with it. So I don't have any expensive hobbies. I just work out, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Before COVID, I travel 130 plus nights a year. And so it was an adjustment for Amy and I, my wife and I, and my 2 kids, because, daddy's been home. This is the longest streak I've been home in a long time. Right. But for you guys, was it much of an adjustment for you guys? I mean, I don't want to say you're always together because you are individual people, you know what I'm saying? But
Right.
Tell me more about that then, Michelle, because you were saying yes pretty fast there.
Yeah, even Maddie asks all the time, when are we going to be able to see Mr. Darrell, our bus driver? I want to ride the bus. We've seen some. She's like, when do we get to ride a bus again? And not that it's, 130 nights a year, you understand it. Not that hotel life is the most amazing, but good heavens, it's a nice change of scenery every now and then. And that's, COVID has hit us especially tough because without going to, Mark is high risk. So we are, people are like, oh yeah, we haven't done it. No, we haven't done anything.
Really haven't.
We did a couple day trips to the beach. Thank heavens we're in an amazing part of the country that we can get to the beautiful Gulf shores very, very quickly. So we'd wake up at 5:30, 6 o'clock and get down there and spend 8-10 hours and come back. We did do that once a week there for a good little stretch of about 6 weeks. But mask all the time, you name it. So when people are like, yeah, this is just so exhausting, we haven't done anything, I'm like, oh gosh, you have no idea. First time in 44 and 47 years, we weren't with our families for Christmas. So we definitely have cabin fever. So we're missing that traveling. And
then you add the next dynamic of having Maddie around all the time too. We're at work all day together. Maddie's not there. She's at school and she was around all day. So we watched her grow since March every single day. Well, up until September, March through September, she's with us every day, obviously. So we saw a lot of the changes that a lot of people miss, and it was just amazing listening to her speech clear up as she's, getting older, watching her grow, getting taller. We measured it like once every couple months just to watch what was happening. And then, once we got back to school and she's going to her own school, then it was like, what Maddie's doing? What was happening? So you started to miss it a little bit. Now we're getting back into that normal phase. Then we went back into Christmas break. And now we're right back into it again, where we've had her every day until tomorrow. She goes back to school. So that dynamic does change. And I miss being on the road seeing everybody and being at meets, definitely for sure. I'm looking forward to actually getting back to it. So
It kind of helps break the monotony of things, right? Like you mentioned the bus and things like that. It's like, well, not many people have ever said they look forward to getting on bus trips and long bus trips, but it's like, oh, well, that's sometimes the best memories we have when we're talking to our teammates. And even though it's, 3, 4, 5, sometimes more, longer bus rides, it's like, yeah, that bus ride sucked, but boy, I really got to know
Right.
so-and-so because of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
let's
just usually we at coaches, usually the fall is the tough part. Like come Thanksgiving, you're like, gosh, we're so ready to compete. We're tired of like racing each other, throwing against each other, just beating ourselves up mentally and physically day in and day out. And now it's like, even though, everything's shut down and the kids were gone from March until August, it just seems like that fall has lasted that much longer. So January 15th cannot get here fast enough. Can't wait.
When I was coaching college track, I always thought the fall was the hardest part for kids, especially freshmen. Typically the freshmen we had played volleyball or basketball and football during the fall during high school. So they were always doing something. And then they come to college only running track. And it was like, yeah, see you in January, when we actually get to compete, right? And everybody, the competitors want to compete. So it's hard to keep them motivated, right? To get to the indoor season and what have you. How have you guys as coaches stayed motivated when back in March, everything got shut down? There wasn't going to be an outdoor season. Didn't know what the fall was going to look like. We're still, we're feeling much more confident now in January than we were even back in October, but there's still a little bit of uncertainty hanging over. How do you guys as coaches stay motivated to do the right things on a day-to-day basis back in July and even as far back as, April and May? How'd you handle that?
It was hard. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I think one of the big things that we did, though, we segmented our days where we stayed in a routine in March when everything, we once the quarantines and everything, and we sent everybody back home, we felt sorry for ourselves a little bit, just like everybody else did. And then we just kind of got back at it. So, every day, like I said, was we segmented the days where we're working in the morning. So we just went straight at recruiting as soon as we got up. We did whatever paperwork we needed to do when we got up for Troy and just making everything as normal as possible without the practice end of things. What it did was it allowed our minds to keep going. It allowed us, like I said, to keep recruiting and just making our team better. I mean, we ended up getting 42 new people during that quarantine. We some of them were walk-ons, a lot of them were scholarship kids, but we were able to get some new kids in to fill some gaps that we had. And it was just because we didn't stop. And I know that, some people just weren't on the grind necessarily the same way, but the fact that we're here and we knew we had to keep working, and it's just in our blood. We just kept going. And that's how it kept us motivated. We're bringing in these new people. Okay, now what's going to be the plan once they get here? And it just made us look forward and just keep looking forward to what we had, what we were getting, and who we had. So it was hard on the mind and hard to take, but I think we did a good job managing it because we were excited when we started practice in September. It was a 6 a.m. practice, but I just remember not being able to sleep and just being giddy about getting back into it because I'd missed it. Just the daily grind of practice, not just being on the phone.
Yeah.
Did it help, hurt, or indifferent being married to people from the staff going through this?
I think it probably helped.
Yeah, it helped because we were able to do things that it wasn't always track centered. Like I said, by the time noon, 1 o'clock came, then we would go and work out. We bought a rack and have some weights in the garage. So we have like a little gym in there. So we do that. And then after that, we did whatever we felt like doing that day in our backyard or out in our driveway, like little pools and things like that. We tried to make the best of that situation.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? And so if Michelle, if you were the coach of the family and Marc was an accountant, well, it'd be hard for Marc, the accountant, to know what you were going through, not being at a meet on Saturday. Like Marc, the accountant, might have thought, well, oh man, you probably love this, right? You get your weekends back and all this kind of stuff. And inside you're like, yeah, but I like to see the kids compete, and I like going to the conference meet, and and Mark the accountant's like, what are you talking about? Like, this is the best thing in the world for you. And you're like, you are crazy, Mark the accountant. But instead, with this dynamic, you guys got to go through it together, losing a lot of the same things, and the positives that come out of it, the time together and the time with Maddie and things like that. You guys got to go through that together, knowing what you both were missing because of the shutdown with COVID.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you heard from every other coach you've talked to on this podcast, like it's the first time that I didn't have a season since the late 80s, like between March and July, I didn't know what I was doing. So used to being on a bus, or so used to being outside at a track, or indoors at a track, well, outdoors at a track, and just seeing kids run, going on recruiting trips or junior nationals, whatever it was, just all that stuff was taken away. It was just a strange feeling.
Yeah, I heard lots of stories.
That's how we kept up.
Say that again.
We would be like, oh, I said, that's how we kept up with the weekend. So we'd be like, oh, we're supposed to be on a plane going to Philly for Penn relays.
Mhm.
So sometimes it was sad, but it was just kind of like, oh, we're supposed to be getting on the bus to go to Lafayette for conference.
Yeah.
And so like week by week, that's kind of, but though, kind of woe is me, it also kind of kept us motivated. Like
Mhm.
I remember the week of what was supposed to be outdoor Sunbelt. Mark sent an email to the whole team, and oh my, I can get the chills still, like right now, just remembering that email. It probably took him 2 hours.
Yeah.
Probably 2 hours to compose because he wanted it to be perfect. And it wasn't supposed to be one of those things like pour us or anything. It was a motivator. Like, hey, this was we had things lined up for this to be an amazing year. And our women came off of a runner-up finish. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Indoors. Wow. That didn't even sound right still. And the men just, all our ducks were in a row per se, silly cliche, but anyways, and it's just like, what are you doing right now to hold yourself accountable so that this time a year from now we can be in the same state? And it was just like, we got so many texts after that email went out, just these kids like, coach, I'm in the weight room. We had kids making weights with like 5-gallon buckets and cement and just rigging things from their decks and ceilings. It was so cool just to keep that dynamic and keep those kids motivated. And that's one thing that stands out in my head, in terms of not losing them per se when they're gone from you for, holy cow, way too many months, 5. We had little things like that he would pull out of his hat, and it was just awesome to get the response. So we kind of kept that fire burning, and that's been the focus all fall. Once we got them back here, it was like, thank goodness, our family's back. Oh, I have all my kids here. Like, all right, I see your faces. We're all healthy. We're all here. Now let's keep this ship going. So it's been pretty cool.
I love hearing that stories about the kids who are resilient, right? That something was taken away from them without their doing something wrong. It's one thing if you do something wrong, something's taken away from you, right? But through no fault of their own, the season was stripped away from them, especially the seniors and such, right? You always want to go out with a bang, and so you plan for that, and 2020 happened, right? But I love the resilience of the coaches, because the same thing occurs with the coaches. I mean, the athletes, they're 18 to 22-year-olds. They got 40 plus years to make up for what 2020 didn't happen, right? Like they can figure out other things. Some of our coaches, we're down to 20, 25 years left of coaching. And it's very easy to fall into that trap of, oh man, woe is me. This was supposed to be my year. We coming off of a runner-up. We were going to do better at outdoor or whatnot. And then let it spiral into 2021 and on, into the future. I heard so many stories of coaches that utilize this time to not waste it. So they double down on their spouse, or they double down on their kids or their parents, who are in an age category. I loved hearing those stories, because it was like, oh, well, that's what a real track coach is. A real track coach is not defined as someone who takes a 100-meter runner from X to Y. It's the lives that you affect in a positive manner. And if you don't
Mhm.
have your own athletes to affect that, well, a real track coach goes finds other people to affect positively, right? So their own family and things like that. So I love hearing that
Mhm.
story. That's awesome. Mark, when did you get the idea to write that seemingly impactful email? Was that a spark overnight? Was that something you had been planning for a while? Where did that come from?
There was like no thought at all before it happened. I was looking through stuff, and I just happened to be on my email, and I just started composing it and wrote it to the team. And it was, I don't know. I felt like last year would have been the best season we had since we've been here. And, I didn't want to let COVID be the thing to not motivate the kids and not let them know, and let them know that I'm still thinking about this, even though I'm away from it. And it was just a thought that just popped into my head. It wasn't something that I thought about prior to. Like, I was trying to forget about going into Sunbelt, to be honest, or any other meet for that matter. But you just can't do it as a coach. If it's in your blood, that's just what you do. So I just composed it, sent it out, and and I wasn't looking for any type of response. Like, when I say things to people, most of the time, because I'm not a big talker to begin with, that, and I wasn't looking for a response. I just wanted to let you know that this is where my brain is. I hope yours is here as well. If not, we got a long way to go, but we got some time to right the ship, So that was it.
Did the staff know about it, or did they find out when they read it as well?
I think I sent it to the staff too. I don't remember if I sent it to just the kids or if I CC'd you guys all on it.
Honestly, don't think you did send it to us. I think it was
Right.
just the kids.
Okay.
I think you talked, obviously I knew you were doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you talked to Riley and Elliot, but I don't think you sent it to us.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that was just one of those things. It was just, honestly, I looked at it as just between me and them at that point in time, because we have such a big team, and, I don't, like any other coach, you don't talk to everybody as much as you should, but you try to touch them as much as you can. And that's what I was trying to do with that, in that moment. So, and I'm a very competitive person. So, my competitive juices were still there. So, I'm really looking forward to really getting started and being able to send those when it really matters, when we're getting ready to go into competition. So hopefully we get that opportunity.
When you can see an end result from the letter, when you can actually, okay, we got to meet this weekend. Let's go see what happens now. Well, this is fascinating. I appreciate, the openness and authenticity that you guys are sharing. I can't say thanks enough. I'm so grateful that, you kind of bare your souls when you're talking about this. It's not an easy thing. So I really appreciate it. So let's take a step back. Let's talk a little bit about your careers, which inevitably led to you meeting. So I'll let you guys, I'm not going to get in this argument. I'll let you guys decide who starts on where they grew up, how they got into track, and how did you think about getting to coaching for the first time?
Right. You want to go?
We'll let the older, wiser one go first.
She lies about her age all the time. So I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania called Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philly. Track was the furthest thing from my mind as a kid. I mean, athletics was kind of the furthest thing from my mind. I was not an athlete when I was younger. And it was one of those things I just kind of developed into athletics. I couldn't run, jump, throw a ball, nothing up to like the 5th or 6th grade. Not quite sure what happened, but things just started clicking. And, I started playing soccer, started wrestling, and I thought wrestling, and I played baseball when I was younger. So I got good at baseball. Wrestling, I was very good at. And I thought that those were going to be the two sports that I was going to be a part of. And my uncle ran track when he was in high school, and he always kept saying, you should try it. So I found out that our high school was going to get indoor track my 9th grade year. It was 88, 87, 88. And I started running indoors and loved it. Gave up on the wrestling because this was a lot easier on the body and a lot easier way to do a sport. And I really did love it.
So
so that's how I got started.
You loved it right off the bat.
Yeah, I did. I don't know what it was. It wasn't that I did stellar in that meet. It was just I enjoyed the atmosphere, and You know, it's just something that I just wanted to do. I gave up on baseball too because I started playing baseball when I was t-ball 5 and 6 and little league, you know, up through 15, 16. I played baseball and ran track in high school my freshman year as well, outdoors. So, but in the end, things were good with track, and I loved every minute of it. So I stopped playing baseball, and track was just what I did. I played soccer in the fall just to keep me in shape for it, and started doing indoor and outdoor just all year round.
What events were you focused in?
Sprints, 100, 200. I tried to throw the long jump in there once in a while, but it just wasn't what I was good at, you know. And I was running the 1, the 2, 4x1, 4x4 on a regular basis. Go ahead.
And where did that lead you for school, for after high school?
I went to Lafayette College in Pennsylvania. You know,
He's a nerd.
I was gonna say that's the equivalent. I don't want to call it Ivy League Junior, but it's that's academic 101 in the Patriot League, right? Is that the right league?
I was.
Yeah.
And that was the
Yes.
first year. Yeah, first year of the Patriot League. No scholarships, no nothing. It was
Right.
strictly academic. So, yeah. So I mean, it was a different experience for me. You know, it was weird the first year. First year was very shaky, but I got comfortable in my own skin over the time period I was in school, which most freshmen do. I struggled my freshman year, wasn't used to being away from home. And for me, being away from home, I was 2 hours away.
I was going to ask, wait a minute, how far was that?
Everything suffered.
Pennsylvania's a big state, so it could have been a real far
It
away,
wasn't very far.
but it was 2 hours.
2 hours. It wasn't far at all. It was just, I had a hard time adjusting I had a hard time being out of my comfort zone. And I think in life, that experience going to Lafayette is the thing that has made me who I am, and just being able to adapt to whatever situation I'm in. And
Because you had to learn to be comfortable with other people, not just in your own skin. Or first you had to be comfortable with your skin, and then others.
Right.
Yeah.
And then others, and I was used to being in a very, very diverse place. Kennett had a lot of different types of people in it, and Lafayette really didn't. Lafayette was a very white school with not a lot of brown faces in it. So it took a little while to really get used to that. And I didn't think it would bother me at first, but it did. And it was a different atmosphere that I had to get used to. But it panned out. You know, I ended up doing well there, and it opened up a lot of doors, both, you know, academically and athletically.
What were you majoring in, and what were you thinking professionally, like for a career?
Well, I went in, I thought I was going to end up being a bio major, chemistry, because I wanted to try to do physical therapy once I was done. Chemistry had its own idea. So quickly switched that thought. And, you know, it ended up, I'm a sociology major. The whole time I was there, I mean, it was an eye-opening experience. It's like when I talk to the kids now, that experience too, having a backup plan. If this bio thing didn't work, what was I going to do? And I had no idea at the time. And much like most kids now, they have no idea what they're doing either. But I was able to adapt to that and be able to get through and do well while I was there. Stayed active in music while I was there too. So I tried to juggle both. Didn't always work out as well as I wanted it to, but
now you throw that in there. We haven't discussed this yet. Talk to us about this music side.
Yeah, I played sax all through elementary school, middle school, high school, played in college, jazz band in college and things like that. Different choirs that I was into. So, you know.
Do you still play today?
I do. Every once in a while, I'll pick it up, especially when I'm stressed. Sometimes
Wow.
I'll go and grab it, start playing.
A few weeks ago, we were blessed to have Michael Roberts on the podcast from Northwood University, and I was able to get him to play the guitar on the podcast. What are the odds that we can get a little
It would be slim to none.
tonight? Sorry, cut out. I didn't hear you very well. It sounded like you said it's 100%.
Slim to none.
Okay.
Honestly, I was just talking about that. I'm planning to go get another sax actually, because the ones I have, they're 30 years old. Some of the pads and stuff are falling off, so I have to get them repaired. This is no joke. We were just talking about this the other day.
But for like a track podcast that's not a saxophone podcast, it'd probably be okay, right? Probably would work.
Probably.
You can play your bongo drums.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah. So my brother got me bongos for Christmas. And Elliot came over what was it?
No, it was New Year's Eve. You
New
guys
Year's
had
Eve?
your own New Year's Eve bash.
We were playing music. Elliot was playing guitar. I was playing bongos. We had a great time. 4 straight hours, 12 to 4.
Hey, Daddy.
12 to 4 a.m.
Mike, he was icing his hands. He made ice bags with Ziplocs and was walking around like this at 4 o'clock in the morning because his hands hurt so bad.
Yeah, it was.
You know,
Those two,
there's a fine line between dedication and too farness, excessiveness.
we made the most of staying in for New Year's, and we had a blast. It was great, but it was, they always say, I can remember buying a gift for like one of my nieces or something 7, 8, 9 years ago, and it make a lot of noise. And my sister's being like, what goes around comes around, Michelle. And I'm still waiting for that. Meanwhile, I didn't think it would be my brother-in-law giving my husband that is well older than 4, something that I was going to try to sling out the freaking window, but
I'm a big kid.
he had fun. So
Well,
Big kid.
we'll circle back on the saxophone. We've got some time. We'll
Okay.
see. If it's a hard no the whole time. So, did you end up good? Did you say you ended up becoming a sociology major? Chemistry has killed a lot of careers. Let me tell you, Chem 101 ain't no joke, right? So,
Yeah, no.
did you go into coaching, or was there a career before coaching?
Well, I was thinking about teaching. Like, coaching was never in my thought process. Once I was done with track, I wanted to be done with track. I was just burned out and just ready to be away from it. And honestly, I got home. I was home for a month, and I missed track. And I called my coach, Julio Piazza at the time at Lafayette. I asked him, I said, do you mind if I come back and just volunteer, see if I like this? And really, I haven't looked back since. So I graduated in May of '95, was home, from June, July, August, and I was back on campus, got a job up there at a Foot Locker, just, trying to make ends meet and coach because I wasn't getting paid. And, I loved it and have not stopped coaching since '95, to be honest. So that was pretty much my first real job was, doing sales and things like that. But coaching wise was at Lafayette as a volunteer. And I always looked at that as my first priority because it never felt like a job. I always had fun with it. It was hard because I was coaching kids that were on my team, my friends, my roommate from college was on that team. But, once I was there, I was able to get a grad assistantship at Millersville University of Pennsylvania in '97. Stayed there. I was there for 4 seasons, actually.
coached your brother.
Coached my brother, recruited my brother. He got there. He was there for a year, and then I left. And I ended up going to Yale there. I was there for 14 years, and here I am at Troy.
Is there any other profession? Like I've always find it fascinating when an undergrad, and you mentioned the heptathlete that's now with you, she undergrad did her
Riley.
Troy's Riley, yeah. Is there any other profession where we're in the muck, we're on the team, and then a year later you could be the boss? Meaning, you're a coach now. That's tough.
Yeah. And you have to be removed, from some of the kids. Like, some people don't respond to it well at all. I know that, not everybody did when I was there. Because how am I supposed to get through to them when I was just on the team with them the year before? I mean, that's how they looked at it. I kind of looked at it at times like that, but I also wasn't on my own trying to come up with these plans and practice plans and all that stuff. It was still, I was getting that stuff and feeding it to them. So
it's a
little different.
It's a very rough weave, right? Because you could have done everything correctly, meaning removed yourself, no more partying with them. I mean, you were just roommates with the kid, right? So no more doing the things that we would do as a 22-year-old and whatnot. You can completely do that, but yet you still need the 19 to 21-year-olds to also understand, well, wait a minute, Mark, we were cool. We used to go hang out on Friday nights. What are you saying? We can't go out now? We can't hang out and stuff like that. What do you mean we can't, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It takes both parties, and it's not just two parties, right? It's you, the coach, but then it's upwards of 30, 40 kids. I mean, they're still, as young adults as they could be, they're still kids. That's a tough, that always just amazed me, especially the undergrad ones. The ones that go to grad school and then become an assistant coach at their alma mater. It's like, okay, you got some years in between you, but boy, that's a tough one. That's awesome that you went back to Lafayette and, found your passion, found your calling. And then from there went to Yale. We're going to pause right there. And now let's move over to Michelle.
That's good.
Now, Michelle, with your accent, you're obviously from Alabama originally.
Absolutely. Born and raised. No.
Get some water.
Don't really know. Hold on. Wait, we're having technical difficulties in our filming space.
Is he going to get the saxophone?
No, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to point him in that direction.
Nice.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, no. But no, my dad was in transportation back then. Everybody would consider it trucking. He was in management, and we moved around a lot. My dad is from Eastern North Carolina, just east of Raleigh. And my mom was from upstate New York. Kind of have to say this part so that the rest of my history makes sense. My mom went to Odessa. It was Odessa Junior College at the time. Out of high school.
And now she's in heaven.
And now she's in heaven. Yes, as
That's
Maddie
right.
just left.
That's right, Maddie. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But at the time, it was the only school in the United States that offered women's golf scholarships. And my mom was a pretty freaking good golfer. Long story short, she won the national juniors, the national collegiate, the Ohio State twice. Yeah, she was extremely good. So she went there. It was a junior college still. So after 2 years, her only thing was she wanted to get back on the East Coast so she could drive home in 24 hours if something happened. And crazy enough, I don't know how this all works, but it came down to Duke and East Carolina, and she chose East Carolina. They did not have a women's golf team. She went there and played on the men's team. But my father was a football player, and he ended up at East Carolina. So that's where they met. So that kind of side note will come in handy later. ECU runs deep. So anyways, we moved up and down the East Coast. I was born in Ohio, lived everywhere, Ohio, New York, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, you name it. Moved 11 times before I went to college. Athletic family, we kind of grew up doing a little bit of everything, but gymnastics was my passion. That was my 5-6 day a week in the gym for 11 years of my life. And I, crazy enough, later on in life became the shortest at what I do. But at that time, I was one of the tallest in the gym. It was before collegiate gymnastics had really taken off. So I was just this, super dynamic, big old muscle head stuck in a gym with all these little tiny girls. And so I coming out, like as I was finishing middle school, I kind of knew like, all right, you need to decide, Michelle, what you're going to do. This gymnastics thing's probably not going to go much further. Had started doing track. I was always kind of labeled the fastest kid in school, whatever. Started doing track. We were very fortunate where we lived in North Carolina. Wake County had a tremendous middle school athletic program, and they had track for 7th and 8th graders. I ran at the time, crazy enough, I am old enough, we ran the 220 in the 440. I know, right? So I ran the 100, the 220, the 440, and then I threw the shot.
Told you she lied about her age too, by the way.
Yeah, that may be more regional than time-wise. We're the same age.
Yes, and this was 1988, 89.
I feel like I'm light years away from the 220s and stuff. It was all 2
right.
And
it was crazy because the high schools were all running, normal 100, 200, 400. I don't know. The middle school was a little lost, I presume. But anyways, so started doing that, continued gymnastics through 9th grade. And then track really just became my calling. I still played softball on a travel team. That just came easy. I love my softball players out there, but it just wasn't enough for me. So it was just kind of something else I did to keep me going. Especially once I was done with gymnastics. I played basketball in high school. A little too short. I was a power forward at 5'4". So that was interesting. But so just super active, but track definitely from 9th grade on was my thing. And sorry, what do you
That's
need
all right.
this? Okay.
Did you stay sprints and you mentioned shot put? Did you stay that
Sure.
combo all the way through high school, or did you start transitioning
did.
over? Yeah.
No, in middle school, we only had shot put for the girls. Weird. The guys threw the disc, but the girls didn't. So when I went to 9th grade, I picked the disc up. That was a rocky start. We got better as time went on. And then I still ran the 1-2, 4x1, 4x4, long jump and triple jump. So crazy enough, a few of the smaller schools, well, I probably shouldn't put it that way, we won't name them, but a few smaller schools actually recruited me as a heptathlete. But I had this very strange determination that I was going to be a freaking good thrower. And even though all these big, now what we would call Power 5 schools, I was too small, my numbers weren't astronomical coming out of high school, had different ideas for me. I was determined. So after a very, and that could be a whole nother podcast, how did Michelle land at East Carolina? That could take another hour, but long story short, on April 26, 1994, I remember the day very clearly. I signed my national letter of intent to go to ECU and basically didn't have a coach the whole time I was there. My head coach was amazing. Charlie True Justice, love the man to death. To this day, we stay in touch. Angela Dolby, I was fortunate enough to have as a coach for one season. She was very young. It was cool. We were both young. I'm sure if we sat down right now and had a conversation, we both just shake our head and wonder what in the heck we were thinking. Her first coaching job, little know-it-all, but wouldn't talk, freshman Michelle. But that was really all I had. And then my dad was 3.5 hours away and we just made it work throughout my collegiate career. And then I started throwing the hammer my sophomore year of college. I didn't throw it at all my freshman year. My dad threw in the masters and had met some tremendous people. And one of them was Dr. David Vandergriff. Amazing man. He passed away about 1.5 years ago now, but he just took me under his wing, and my God, it was love at first sight. The hammer and I just clicked. And that was at a time that it was very, very new in our country, new to the NCAA. And I just, right then, I can remember, I'll probably get emotional about this, but we were in Florence, South Carolina. He was a professor at Francis Marion University, psychology. And that's Dad and I would drive down there. It was about 3.5 hours. And we'd go down every couple of weeks. And each time I went back, I mean, I was like throwing like 10 feet, 20 feet further. And David was like, Michelle, this is going to be your event. And I was like, no, I'm a shot putter. I'm going to be a shot putter. And he was like, okay. And just as time went on, I had in my soul that I wanted to throw post-collegiately, like every little girl. In gymnastics, I wanted to be Mary Lou Retton. In 1984, she was my idol. My hair was longer than it is now. I chopped it off. She wins the gold medal. I was going to the Olympics. So once the gymnastics thing took over or went away, track, and I had to find my way. How was I going to get this Olympic dream? And it was right around then, 1995, 96, that I was like, you know what, if I'm going to go anywhere, it's going to be this little ball and chain that's going to take me there. And so through the rest of, I redshirted what was my senior year, so I would have 4 years of throwing the hammer. Had the opportunity to go to NCAAs for indoor and outdoor, was an All-American in 99 in the hammer. And then went on and continued to train kind of my dad and piecing things together. And again, we were just blessed. Dr. Vandegrift, and then just, I guess because I was kind of the nomad, everybody kind of took me under their wing. So coaches that had recruited me, Mike Sargent, my God, I can't speak enough love for that man. Just people that had seen me through the years and watched this little fire plug that I used to get called, or what have you, just develop. They always were there to help me, or Michelle, just come on down and train. Or I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Brian and Linda Blutrick. Linda was my, oh my God, my everything in high school. Just this tall, blonde, beautiful girl, muscular. I was just, that meant the world to me, to see this like feminine chick throwing far and so sweet. And we as a family kind of adopted her. Here she was from Lynn, Massachusetts, down in Chapel Hill. And my mom, being a Yankee, fell in love with her. And we just kind of took her under our wing. And this was back during snail mail. I used to write her letters. Then when Brian got the job at Carolina, that was, good Lord. My little 1995 Jeep Wrangler knew that trip from Greenville, North Carolina to Chapel Hill like the back of our hand. I would drive there 2 hours, spend the night with them, train, drive back. I did that for years. So Brian was huge in my development. And last but not least, Bill. Bill's last name, it just left me. Southern Connecticut. Oh my God.
Sutherland.
Bill Sutherland.
Yeah.
Holy cow, Bill, if you're listening, please, dear God, forgive me. I'm getting old. Bill kind of took me from that. Yeah, she qualified for the Olympic trials in 2000 and hung around in 01, started training with he and Anna and Bethany, and making that trip to Connecticut for 2-3 weeks at a time. Anna, God bless her, take me in. She and Sean took care of me. I'd stay at their house. And Bill really made me believe that I could do what I wanted to do. And that he took me, I still say it to this day, he's the reason I threw 66-93 and had any shot at the 2004 games. So yeah, my career is weird because.
Well, let's pause there. There's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I love the mentors and the selfless people that poured into you, from David and Blue and Sutherland. I mean, just amazing people. You mentioned Angela Dolby, who became Angela Powell.
Powell, correct?
Yes, I thought so. I know where's Angela Powell. I worked with her and Keith at Mississippi State. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I am 99% sure her maiden name was Dolby. And shout out to the Powell family. Lots of prayers. You guys are awesome. Love you guys to death. I only had them for 1 year on staff, or with their staff. I act like I was the head coach. They were there before me. They allowed me to come to Mississippi State, and they were just awesome people with a great family, man. They're just amazing. So shout out to Angela, formerly Dolby Powell. But you mentioned, I was going to ask about your dad. So your dad, one of the nicest people in the entire world, by the way, is also a fairly high level track and field official.
Yes.
Where did officiating come into life for you? What I mean by that is, was he an official and then you started doing track, or did he become an official because you were doing track? How'd that come about?
So, he had thrown in high school in his little town, little high school in his little country town in North Carolina, but football was his thing. So Madeline, please stop. So when I started throwing the shot in 7th grade, he just kind of picked it up and we just learned together. We went to clinics at UNC. Jeff Gorski was the throws coach at the time and would set up clinics. We'd go there. As often as possible. Went to track camp at Carolina with Gorski, and it was just, we from the start were so fortunate with just the people. Ow, that was me.
I thought I was getting hurt. So.
I got pinched for her doing welcome to our family,
Well,
everyone.
well done,
Welcome.
Maddie. Well done.
But so he just kind of started throwing in the masters. He was still working. He was with Old Dominion Freight and would not really officiate until both my sister and I got through college. He never ever wanted it to be, because people would ask him all the time, LB, you're here. Make use of being here. And he was like, I'm here to support my girls. So actually, really, it didn't take off until I was done in 04 that he just jumped in literally head first. There were no feet first. And then when he retired from Old Dominion, the man works more now than he did then. Like, he's in charge of certifying the officials in the state of North Carolina now. It's crazy. But so yeah, the officiating thing kind of came after the fact. And I think it was more to fill the void of traveling every weekend with me. Because in college, he and my mom, I don't know if I even can recall a meet from high school all the way through college. Now, post-collegiately, I was all over the place, so that got a little harder. But I think one of them were at least every single meet my entire career. So I think to fill that void of what track meet am I going to this weekend? What am I doing? He just took on the officiating thing, and here we are.
I can see football being his thing. I mean, he's a big man.
He is a big man.
Yeah. Like, I was waiting for you to tell me he was a high school thrower or something, because I'm like, oh, okay, that would make complete sense. Yeah. I mean, and just again, one of the nicest people in the whole world. So he and your mom met at Eastern Carolina.
Yes.
It must, and I want to hear a little bit about this. It must mean something to you. You remembered April 26, 1994. You didn't remember, oh, I signed to go to ECU in April or my senior year. Like, you knew it down to the day. And obviously I could tell you're seeing that moment in your head of when you actually had the papers out and signed it. What was it attached to, because that's where your parents met, or what was so obviously special about going to ECU?
You know, I from my sophomore, I probably shouldn't admit this on a national coverage, but I will, it's okay. From about it was my freshman year of high school on, I swore I would not go to ECU. All I had ever known was East Carolina purple and gold. I spent my first birthday, literally, 1977 in Ficklin Stadium at that time. It's now Dowdy Ficklin Stadium. It did not matter where we lived in the US. We made that trip at least once, if not 2-3 times, or went to a game like up at Temple or West Point or something when they were closer. It was just, I mean, Maddie over the past 4 years has been wearing, crazy enough, they're 40 plus years old, but some of my old ECU t-shirts. And we've passed them down from the 3 girls all the way to her. But, you know, it was one of those things. I wanted my own new, without saying it, because I didn't want to be rude, but I wanted my own identity. I wanted a school that was mine and I could claim. And so I had known Chu, the head coach, for a long, long time. He had started off at East Carolina as the football equipment manager, crazy enough. And again, we followed East Carolina football, used to go down to the locker room after games. So I had met Chu back in the 80s when I was her age. And so when he started calling me, I was very nice, but most of the time I'd let my mom or dad talk to him. I mean, if he listens to this, he'll laugh and be like, she's not lying. Tried and tried, wanted me to come on an official visit. And I was like, Coach, why? I'm going to be down there anyways for a football game. You want me just to meet with you? Like, I could take somebody on a tour of the campus. And he is just like, you know, Michelle, you're right, but I'd really like you to meet the girls on the team. And I was like, yeah, you know, that's cool, whatever. And I'd never commit to an official visit with him. So finally he called my dad at work and he said, LB, when will you guys be home the week of X? And Dad said, let me check Michelle's meet schedule. Gets back to him. He was like, I'm doing a home visit. Make sure her tail is in the house. And so they literally did not tell me till the night before. And we were on our way back from a meet, and Dad said, so tomorrow night, any studying you need to do tonight, you need to get it done because we're going to have a visitor tomorrow. Okay. I was like, oh, who's coming in town? Chu's coming to see you. I was like, oh, okay. And it was right after we were in the Colonial at the time, and their conference meet was super early. And it was the week before Penn relays, because we would go to conference and then go to Penn. And the girls had done really well at that meet. And he had a deal with them. If they finished XYZ, they were allowed to shave his head. So he shows up at my house with this botched up, like buzz cut. Oh, God bless him. And Chu's not a big guy. So it was just so funny. And he has blonde hair. It was hilarious. Well, he stayed at the house for 6 hours. We talked about football, the team in the 80s when ECU was actually rocking and rolling, doing well against big national teams like Florida States and Florida's. Talked about all the people we knew, different people in the track world we knew, but nothing about me. And finally, he was like, well, let's go ahead and get on with why I'm here. Michelle, this is what I have. This is what we're going to offer you. Da, 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 da. Academically, you know you've gotten this from ECU. You can go to honors college if you want, da, 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 which would be perfect for what you want to do. Just let me know. And literally, it was like, drop the bomb, drop the mic, exit door A. And he like said what he had to say, stood up, gave all of us hugs. And we walked him to the front door, stood on the front porch, waved to him, closed the door. And I looked at my parents. I had said maybe 20 words the whole time he was there. Looked at my parents. I said, well, I hope you guys are happy because that's where I'm going to school. And my bedroom at my parents' house is downstairs, like there to the right. And I just walked in my room and closed my door.
So what was it? Because you were pretty committed to not going there.
Yeah.
And then a 6 hour, I can't imagine an 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old enjoying a 6 hour visit from a coach, even though there was friendships there.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a madhouse because my sisters were younger. So there were the three of them running around, mom feeding us dinner, the whole nine. And then, yeah, it was more just academically, I knew I could get what I needed there. It was in state. So the cost for what we were going to need to cover was very reasonable. I could actually get most of that taken care of with my academic money. And I just kind of weighed my options, and I had my last 5 were all going to be great schools. That wasn't going to be an issue. One was literally in my backyard, and my mom told me, you're going to college, you're not staying home. That might be a little too close for comfort, Wake Forest. So, you know, that kind of made sense, but it just seemed like the right to do it. At first it sounded great. University of Florida with Sandy Fowler, Air Force Academy, and get medical school paid for afterwards. And all those things sounded amazing. And my mom and dad sat at the kitchen table with me when we got back from indoor national scholastics in Syracuse. And my dad was like, you know, Michelle, you really need to start narrowing down this list. You've had some great visits. And I was like, yes, sir, no problem. He was like, no. It's a problem. You need to listen. And I was like, yes. And he was like, you need to think about how many meets your mother and I have missed. And for some people, that doesn't matter. Some people, but for you, we are a very close family. We have our fights. We're very close. And, you know, these schools sound amazing, but Mom and I aren't going to get on a plane. You have 3 sisters. We can't jump on a plane, one of us, every week to go here, there, and everywhere. And that really, really resonated with me. Like, I can remember just thinking that through, and okay, so that took a couple of them off pretty quickly. And what was left, again, I felt like I couldn't really go wrong. It was weird because I was going to go to a school where I did not have a throws coach. but Chu said he would have one for me by the time the season started, and that's when Angela came. So it was comfortable. It's what I knew. I just kind of that whole like, wow, your dad wore the purple and gold on that field you've watched your whole life, and your mom played golf for them. This might not be so bad. I kind of matured. I was young. I was only 16, 17, and so I had that quick like, okay, it's not completely about me. It's about me, but there's a lot of other things. So looking back, it made me the athlete that I was. I never had that coach there 24/7. I never had that crutch of walk out of the circle and bam, like, what did I do? What do I need? I had to grow up as a competitor really fast as an athlete, had an amazing sports psychologist there that, oh my God, I couldn't have done it without him. Shout out to Dr. Bill Moore at Oklahoma. So it just worked. And so I remember them saying, you let him sit here for 6 hours, Michelle. Now the man has a 3.5-hour drive back to Greenville, wondering, what is she thinking? What did I do enough? And I was like, I'll call him tomorrow. And they were like, and nobody carried a cell phone at that time. So I couldn't pick up the phone and be like, Coach, I'm coming. So I got out of school the next day and went to our athletic director's office and called the 1-800 number. I'll never forget this, to Scales Fieldhouse, and asked the secretary to let me speak to Coach Chu. And I told him I was committing. So yeah, crazy.
That's awesome.
Crazy.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that, you could, and at a young age, this is a tough thing to realize and come around, is that you can have and live your own story, even though it might be a part of someone else's story. Obviously it has a large history for your family, but
Right.
your experiences and then the fruit from those experiences, the education and the athleticism, that's been your story, not theirs, that you've carried on through. So that's amazing. And that is tough for a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid to think of at that time. You could, sitting back as a 30-year-old, you can, you got hindsight. So you can go, man, you know what? I should have done this. But that in the pretense, that's really intelligent. I'm happy that happened. So what did you, we got up through post-collegiate, obviously had a great career as a hammer thrower, got, opportunities to throw at the trials and have opportunities to make some other teams and such. What were you thinking career-wise? Was coaching in the mix, or where were you at?
No, my story's, again, another podcast, the story of Michelle. But so long story short, I wanted to go to med school. That first it was physical therapy, and I did all my hours, and I was like, I'm just not going to be able to do enough. I want to do more. So I was like, med school, and ECU had a med school. So I just kind of felt I was setting myself up beautifully for that. And so redshirting my senior year, I still graduated, and obviously had another year of eligibility. So there was no way I was going to do med school and compete. That there's probably out there that have done it, very few, but no, I just knew better. That was going to be my big year, and I wanted to kind of put all my athletic eggs into that basket. So had just kind of made the decision to start a master's degree. I had to know that I wasn't going to finish it. I deferred medical school for a year. And for that reason, like, hey, what can we do here? I've got another year eligibility. So I deferred for a year and was all set to do a athletic and sports management master's. And I was training with the football team that summer. I did that a couple of summers with Coach Jeff Connors. And he comes up to me. This was the last week of July, right before the team got their 2 weeks off to go home before they'd come back for fall camp. And he said, hey, Shell. Yes, sir. What are you doing next year? I said, I have a 5th year. Yeah. But what are you doing? I'm like, throwing? He was like, no, you're not. You're going to be my GA. Well, you're still going to throw, but you're going to be a GA in the weight room. I said, can I do that? He was like, oh no, run upstairs and talk to Miss Rosie. That was our compliance director. So literally I went out the back door, up the 4 flights of stairs, asked her, she was like, that's a good question. I've never been asked that. If you could be a graduate assistant as well as still finish your eligibility. She was like, sit down, calls the NCAA office. They say yes. And literally within about a 30-minute to an hour time span, I went from just being a 5th-year track athlete to a graduate assistant strength coach and also 5th year. So
Now,
when
this graduate assistant strength coach, was this for all sports, including football, or was this just for track?
it was football, I ended up having football, track, women's basketball, volleyball, soccer. Oh my God, I had everybody.
Now,
Volleyball, soccer, softball, and cheerleading.
you mentioned your thoughts about when you saw Linda Blue Trick, about, you know, the representation of the athlete that you described, and, you know, seeing someone of your, who looks and acts and talks like you, you know, that's important for people to see that, oh, you can also become X, Y, and Z.
Right.
This was 98.
8.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there weren't very many female strength and conditioning coaches, graduate assistant or not. And there were even fewer female strength and conditioning coaches working with football.
Yes, it was it was on the news several times.
What were your
they did-
thoughts? Was there any fear? Or was there, I mean, you have no role model. I'm assuming you have no role model. Maybe there was a groundbreaking individual in your area, but I mean, what were you thinking? I mean,
You know,
that's a tough question. What were you thinking? But what were you thinking?
What were you thinking? You know, it's funny because Linda actually, Lipson Blue Trick, was a strength coach at UNC prior, like kind of at the beginning of her post-collegiate career. She never really, she was more in the Olympic sports weight room, never really worked with football directly, but good God, they knew who she was because of the athlete she was. Please stop. Yes, ma'am. And then when let's see, my senior year at East Carolina, we had a GA by the name of Jennifer Jones. She has done phenomenal for herself. She's been a little bit of everywhere, but most recently is now the head women's strength coach at Auburn. And Jen was another Linda, just tall, super athletic, phenomenal athlete, had played volleyball at Michigan State. So I guess I was really lucky in that sense that I had those two women that were just very strong, not like bully type strong, but just their presence made you know they were there. And so, yeah, when Coach Connors asked me, I can remember calling home, and what I was the most excited about was that I was going to be able to be a strength coach for the football team that I had cried, traveled all over the place, wanting them to succeed through the 2-9 seasons repeatedly, to the one huge 1991, finish number 9 in the country, win the Peach Bowl. Just, I'm going to be a coach. I am coaching on this staff. And oh my God, you haven't ever met a 21-year-old that was more happy to go home for 5 days and have to go back to campus to be there. At the time we had 3-a-days. That was before they took it down to 2-a-days. I didn't care. I would be there from 4 a.m. until 2 a.m. and get 2 hours of sleep and be back. It was my life. Oh,
So
and
when we know we're going to have guests on the show, I like to reach out to Twitter and ask them if they have any questions for the guest. And we did have 2 questions, and it worked out this way. One was for Michelle and one's for you, Marc. We'll get to you on your question. It comes from Lamont Johnson. So prepare yourself. Yeah, exactly. But the question for Michelle was from our good friend Corey Mistretta over at Southeast Louisiana. And he asked, he'd like to hear about your journey into the male-dominated world of strength and conditioning, as we're getting into that now, obviously. But how were you received? I mean, right now in today's world, right, 2020, 2021, we've had gosh, I can't remember her name. The young lady who just kicked for Vanderbilt. That was a big news, a female coming into the quote unquote male world. And then we just had, I believe her name is Becky Harmon, I believe, who coached the
NBA.
Yeah. And I loved Greg Popovich, I think is his name. I am not a basketball fan, so I'm probably butchering all these guys and gals names. But the coach Popovich talked about that it wasn't a big deal because she had already earned it. I love that attitude, not this like, and it should be made a big deal of because what she's doing is groundbreaking and things like that. But he seems very much more of the, well, we already hired her. Like that was the groundbreaking, like that we thought she was good enough to coach for us. That's why we hired him. We are talking about the NBA here where, money rules all in the sense of it's a business. So there are no charity hires when it comes to the NBA. And I believe there's at least one young lady who is, I don't know if she's in the strength conditioning staff or on quality control staff, but I think she works for the 49ers, I believe.
Is it 49ers
It's
or the
49ers.
Bills?
Yeah.
I think it's 49. One in the Bills and one at the 49ers.
So-
Because one of them was at Dartmouth.
Oh, okay. So what I'm getting at is we're in 2020 and 2021, and these are still big news headlines, right? We're going back 20 plus years. How were you even received? Not only just the kids, and again, they're 18 to 22-year-olds. I'm not going to excuse whatever good or bad things that they did.
Right.
I'm more talking about the adults. You had to have a head strength coach and other strength coaches and other people who oversaw. You had football coaches who obviously had their own opinions about their weight room and things like that. How were you received? That's the best looking face I've had on this podcast at all right there. I can't ever remember dog's name.
Oh, Petey.
Petey has joined us on the podcast. A little quieter than Maddie, but we've got another one.
He's been sleeping.
Good
Yeah,
for you,
Petey,
Petey.
named after the ECU Pirate.
Oh, geez, of course. That's awesome.
Right.
Hey, you know what? I named my son after my alma mater. The dog
You did.
is not the same equivalent. Maddie, you could have been, they could have gone very exotic and named you Isu or Iku or something like that.
No, not that crazy. But I guess I was fortunate. Jeff Connors, by far one of the best strength coaches in the country, just recently retired, but he, from day one, I guess he just saw something different in me. Again, I trained with football every summer. I'm not a very ego hungry person, but everybody knew who I was. That football staff had been together. Coach Steve Logan had put that staff together and they had stayed together. So even those guys knew who I was. And when Coach Connors announced in the staff meeting that he was hiring me, he asked Coach Logan, was there any problems? And he said, with Michelle? No. And he actually came down and spoke to me. The only, I guess, lecture per se that I got from both of them, Coach Logan and Coach Connors, were the hardest thing for you is going to be that Monday through Friday, whenever you depart with the team to 3 o'clock, you are a coach. And then from that moment you step on the bus for the next 24, 48 hours, you're a teammate to the same kids that you're coaching Monday through Friday. And I was like, that's no big deal. Again, that whole, I was saying, kind of introvert, like my time. I wasn't the partier, go out. So that was not a big transition for me at all. I already lived by myself. So it was super simple. And if anything, I think that it made me more disciplined and actually set me up better for the next rest of my life.
I want to make sure we do right by both of your journey. Just looking at the clock, how are we doing time-wise? That'll help me. You're okay? You're okay?
Nothing else going on right now.
All right, good. This is important stuff, and I do feel, and I've already written some notes for future. I'll get a hold of you, Michelle. But this journey, this is important. Both your journeys are important, and so this is fascinating. I think you're right that back then, at least, it had to be the right place. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know there was a right time, because the right time was a long time ago, right? But the right place to do that, right? Well, let's fast forward a little bit. That's awesome. I did not know that part of your journey. I love that. So you get is coaching, your strength coaching, is this now, because you're in the as a graduate assistant, as you're finishing up your senior year, is this now like, okay, this is what I'm going to do?
That didn't really strike me. I tried not to think about that much that 5th year. I just did my job per se and trained my tail off and competed. It was once I came back from Boise, Idaho, it was kind of like, all right, now, Michelle, what do you do? Do you finish this master's degree? Do you go on? You want to keep throwing? Is this the answer? You can be a strength coach. You're more than likely not going to have to travel on the weekends, so you could probably, compete without an issue. And after some very long talks with myself, spent lots and lots of time going through that. Med school is no little thing just to kind of sweep away. I made the decision to stay and finish my master's at ECU and take on that first year post-collegiately, try to make the Olympic trials, and then kind of see where it led. And all of a sudden doors just started opening. I was offered 3 jobs before I even graduated. And I was like, well, hold on a minute. I want to finish this degree. I'm not just going to walk away from it. So, can we revisit this in May? And I interviewed at Wake Forest and with longtime strength coach Ed Ellis. And then I interviewed literally 3 days later at Virginia Tech with Mike Gentry. And again, Mike had been at East Carolina way back in the 80s. I had met him when I was a little kid, remembered him like it was nothing, and kind of just had idolized him. He and Coach Connors were really good friends as well. And it worked out that I got that job up at Virginia Tech as the director.
You're about to answer the exact question I was about to ask. I'm a terrible host that way. These jobs that you were interviewing for, were these track coaching jobs, or were these strength and conditioning jobs? And what
Strength
kind
and
of,
conditioning.
and what kind of strength and conditioning jobs? Like, oh, you can oversee volleyball, or were these like still in the football type level?
No, so at Wake Forest, it would have been a little bit of everything, just because they kind of operated with a smaller staff like we did at East Carolina. Virginia Tech at that point had played in the national championship that January. And they were kind of pushing ahead. They had made some, big gains. They had built a weight room just for football, had expanded their staff. So when I took that job, my official title was Director of Strength and Conditioning for Women's Olympic Sports. So fancy. So I had all of our women's teams. All of our Olympic sports were in one weight room, except for women's basketball and men's basketball. They trained with football, or in the football weight room. But I guess my kind of claim to fame as the little chick thing with football, I was the first female to ever work on Frank Beamer's staff. So it took a little while. I had to get my foot in the door, but after about 3-4 months, right at the tail end of my first football season there, I started working with them. Namely, I think I was the guinea pig. I got to play racquetball with the linemen that needed to lose weight. That was kind of, they were like, oh, Michelle can do it. She's fit. So I'd spend hours in a non-air conditioned racquetball court. But it was awesome. It was worth it. And again, those men, people see them on TV and the things they've done, Frank Beamer, Mike Gentry, Bud Foster, all those guys, there was never any question. I wasn't one of them, obviously. I look extremely different, but I was. There was no question of where'd you come from? Why do you deserve this? I just did my job. I've never really tried to see it any different. And, I think back, we talk about great groundbreaking, and one of our very own extremely accomplished throwers, Meg Ritchie. People forget Meg was a head strength coach for football now many years ago, but talk about groundbreaking. So I guess, knowing how well she threw, I mean, phenomenal collegiate record holder up until not so very long ago. And it was people like that I I don't want to say idolize because that's bad, but characteristics about them that I loved. And that was one of them. I mean, if she could do it when I was in grade school, then why in the heck can't I do it now when we've come so far? So it was just never one of those things.
That's what amazes me. You say we've come so far, and we've definitely have come farther than this time frame, the 98 time frame. Yet, we still very much have a discussion about, well, can a female track coach coach male throwers and male sprinters? I mean, that's still a conversation. It's not a given, even though it should be in today's world. And by the way, I don't think I've ever, I shouldn't say ever, but it's rarely the other way around. Oh, but Marc's a male. Can he coach female sprinters and female jumper? Like, no, it's like, oh yeah, he's a coach. He can coach. We don't give that same respect to the female side of it. It's like, hey, she's a coach. She can coach. But it doesn't matter if they're male or female, etc. Right? And depending on her skill level, whether she's coaching middle school or high school or college or professional at that point, that's fascinating. I love that. So you're breaking ground at Virginia Tech, and Marc is at Yale. Where do the two paths start connecting?
Well, it's funny because we actually met each other in like 2000, 2001, and really never gave much of a thought because she had mentioned Anna Mann. She used to be our throws coach at Yale, and Michelle would come up and train with both Anna and Bethany Hart. And, we met at the track a couple times, but again, there was nothing that was there at that point.
So this isn't a love at first sight story.
Oh, I mean, we were both married at that time.
There was nothing.
Yeah. So there was.
I was going to say, so this is not a fairy tale story. It could have been a whole different story there. Holy cow. Okay, good. All right. So you're both good people. Good. Okay.
Yes.
And what's funny about the whole thing is she had to remind me that I had met her back in 2000, I think. I mean, because I remember you brought that up, and it wasn't because I was ignoring anything. It was just, I just didn't, it had been so long, I did not even remember. But then we met each other. You came out with us at regionals when we were down in Florida State.
At Florida State, yep.
And there's just a bunch of coaches, something like that. Yeah. It was just a coaches gathering. Everybody was getting together. I was out with Anna again at Miller's Ale House or something like that down in Florida State. And Michelle came in with, were you with by yourself or with somebody else?
I was with the Duke staff with a couple of
she was at Duke at the time.
Yeah.
And then we just started talking, watching a UFC fight on the big screens actually. And that was the end of it. She went home, went back to her hotel. I went back to mine. We ended up in the airport that next day. We were both flying out at the same time. I spoke to her, said hello. She said nothing to me. So I was like, all right, that was weird. I know I just saw you last night. And I know.
Big timing you or what?
I don't know what she was doing, but she surely didn't speak. So it was okay. It was fine.
He tells everybody that story.
Is it the truth?
Yes.
There we go. So that's how it worked.
And the Tallahassee airport's about this big.
Oh.
So it's not even like I could be like, oh, I didn't see you.
No. I know that airport. Yeah. You can't even, there ain't a Starbucks to go to. You ain't going nowhere. You gate, no security. That's all you got there at Tallahassee. Yeah.
Standing in line at getting food.
Yeah.
I was the next person behind her. So it was okay.
Anyways.
I wasn't too hurt by it, but I think we didn't see each other then at that point. Didn't see each other speak or anything until convention that December. And even then it was the same type of thing. It was like kind of small talking. We spoke and everything, and we talked, and that was it.
But it's still, it's just colleagues at this time. Like, oh, she's a track coach. I'm a track coach. Yeah.
That was it. So, but I mean, after that, when she was at Duke, they would still come up to IC4As and ECACs up in Boston. So we'd see each other then, and that's where things started to really take off at that point. So, we got closer, and then she ended up going to Dartmouth.
Which his throws coach, Carl Wallen, retired at HEPS that May. So
Mhm.
that was May of 2009.
Right.
He told his throwers at the end of the competition that he was retiring. It was this huge emotional thing. Well, his throws coach, Anna Mann, literally gets on their team bus and calls me.
Mhm.
And she's like, "Hey, Shell, what are you doing?" And I was like, I don't even know. I think I had been at the pool or something at my apartment complex. And she was like, "All right, here's the deal. You've been wanting to get back up north. I have the opportunity for you. Coach Welling just retired. I don't have a lot of time. We're getting ready to leave. I don't want everybody to hear me on the bus. Get your resume and cover letter ready. I'll call you tomorrow."
Mhm.
Okay. And that was that. And so I text Mark and I was kind of like, "Hey, what's this I hear?" And he was like, "Did Anna call you already?"
Yeah.
And like the rest is history. Like I ended up interviewing. That was by far professionally the hardest decision I've ever made. I loved Duke. Loved it. Amazing place to work. I was 50 minutes from my parents. It was amazing. But I was single. I had to figure out how to live on my own and make some money. And the Dartmouth opportunity was just amazing. And so yeah, next thing I know, I found myself in Hanover, New Hampshire, and Mark was 3 hours away. I knew nobody.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Hey, why don't you just come down and hang out with all of us?" And I was like, "I just got here. You want me to drive 3 hours? What?"
Right.
And I did, and I hung out with Anna and Bethany, and I was like, "All right, I can handle this. This is awesome."
Yeah.
And then we just kind of never ever had a reason to like grow apart or not be in touch anymore.
Right.
So who asked who on the first date?
You did.
I would have
I
lost
probably
that
did.
bet. I would have lost that bet.
Really?
It was definitely him. Definitely.
I mean, I think it was when we were at a meet.
We
I
were.
said, yeah. I was just,
And you were like, "Let's go grab dinner and have a few drinks." And I was like,
yeah, it's exactly.
But wait.
As much.
But you're in a group where you guys do that. Like that wouldn't have been awkward. How did he delineate that this was not a group thing anymore? This was Marc Davis, not Coach Davis and Coach Clayton and Coach Mann and everybody getting together. This is Marc and Michelle having dinner and drinks.
I was just forward and asked.
he was the whole
And-
time. He was just like, "So,
And-
do you want to go hang out together?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah."
It was not really the reaction I thought I was going to get, but I was like, okay, maybe I read this completely wrong, but I'm just going to keep plowing away at it and see what happens. So, but it's funny, as much as you can get out of her in situations like this, social situations, not always that way.
Was there a
Especially
concern from your side, Mark, that it was like, oh, does she think I'm asking her, like, we're just all going out and hanging out? Or like, does she know, like, I'm interested?
Oh, she knew full well
Okay.
what I was asking. She knew. I think that's why she had the reaction. You know, I think it just made her nervous to be out of that comfort zone of all of us.
Right.
You know, so yeah.
But it worked out.
Yeah, look at this.
Well, obviously, yeah. Spoiler alert. Yeah. If you haven't been paying attention today, it worked out. Exactly. Yeah. So how was it working? That's a whole different dynamic as you go through your dating. You're now at conference rivals. I don't know if it's rivals necessarily, but you're inside the conference against each other. And luckily you're not both throws coaches or something like that, because that could have been a whole mess, right? But you're competing against each other. You're recruiting maybe some of the same kids. How was it during that process?
I think for us, it wasn't bad at all. I was really close to Sandy Ford Santones, that was one of the head coaches at Dartmouth. So when she went there, it was another family type of atmosphere between the three of us. So there wasn't any type of, there was always rivalry. None of us wanted to lose, but you know, at the same time, we were always cordial. We were always happy. We were always joking around. It was like a family, like I said. And we never had any type of animosity like that. It was great. It was a great relationship. And I always enjoyed going up there, you know, when I go up and visit. You know, we were always together. Always together, the three of us. So You know, from that perspective, I mean, it was a great relationship, and everybody at, you know, the Ivies, it's a different league. You know, there's a lot of what's the camaraderie between the coaches. You know, we were very, very close. Staffs were very, very close. Everybody knew each other, and everybody, again, nobody wanted to lose, but it was a friendly atmosphere during that time. I couldn't speak on it now, but you know, we always enjoyed being around each other. So it was a good time. It was always good fun.
We made what was it? How many hours was it from Hanover to Moncton?
Oh, it was 10 hours, I think.
Yeah, we did a 10-hour road trip from Hanover to Moncton for the World Junior Championships in 2010, the three of us. Now that, if we didn't like each other beforehand,
yeah,
woo!
That was a long trip in a car.
And we just stayed in a regular old double.
Oh yeah.
All three of us, because we were trying to conserve money for the programs because we were going to be there for a whole week. And so the three of us, it was like the couch and 2 beds. Oh my, it was hilarious.
Yep.
Beer tasted very good that week, I will say.
And we'd get to the meet. As soon as we got to the meet, we'd all just disperse. We weren't telling anybody who we were talking to.
Right.
You know, it's just
friendly
no,
rivalries are still rivalries.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But I think what made Mark and I even closer was I had Sandy, and rest in peace, she's my dearest, most best friend. But Mark had been in the league for so long, and the idea is very quirky, you know, how you recruit, early decision versus this versus that. And, you know, I get there and I'm trying to learn it all. And Sandy was amazing, and Barry as well, but I could call him and be like, all right, babe, help. What do I tell this kid? What do I do? And so that was like, even though we weren't on the same staff at that point, that working together started even then. And very rarely did we really have any crossover recruiting wise.
Right.
It takes a totally different kid to go to Dartmouth versus Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Brown, because I mean, we were in the woods. It's amazing. If you love that, oh my God, I love that place. But I do. But totally different kid. You're not going to get a city slicker wanting to go spend the next 4 years of their life in Hanover, New Hampshire. So it was comfortable. I knew I could call Mark and be like, okay, how do I get this kid from outside of LA to fall in love with Dartmouth? And then what are the next steps? So we kind of started working together then. It was cool.
Was it ever, as you guys move from, you know, dating to, you know, there's all these stages, right? Boyfriend, girlfriend, all this kind of stuff, right? Was it strategic for either of you of like, well, since he coaches sprints or she coaches throws, if I ever become a head coach, like I've got a member of my staff locked down?
In the end, yeah. It made it really easy to be able to do that. And the strength coaching component. I mean, I will tell you that, and I say it to her all the time. I tell everybody I talk to, this is the best strength coach I've ever seen in my life. You know, the stuff that she does, it works. It puts us on the right track. It keeps us ready to go. And like those last 3-4 weeks that we're in the weight room, that's how I know if we're ready to run or not. If those kids are hitting numbers and she's excited when she comes home, and we know that they're PRing in the weight room and we're running fast and we're going through our peaks, tapers, all that, blah, blah, blah. She times it right every single year. And
so what happens, Mark, when, who would it be? The Charlotte Panthers call Michelle up to offer her the strength and conditioning coach?
Deuces, babe.
I would say absolutely not. It's got to be the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Why didn't I go with the Eagles? That would have been an automatic yes. That's right. Oh boy, you know, I'm not an NFL guy at all, so I don't even think about those things. But that would have been right. Oh gosh, dang it!
Yeah.
I missed.
I tell her all the time. I mean, one of the things I say all the time is if something comes up like that, you have to look at it. You know, I mean, she's the most qualified person in this house. You know, I mean,
there's 2 of us.
But she has the opportunities to do that. And I never want to be the person that is causing that to not happen. I don't ever want her to feel stuck because, you know, you have to do that as a family. It happens all the time, and do I enjoy what I do as a coach? Absolutely. I really do. But if there's an opportunity for her, then, we've got to explore that. It's fair.
So as the relationship evolves now into eventually you got engaged, which we're going to hear that story, Marc. Hold on. We're going to have to hear that. How did you start thinking about a marriage that's also on the same staff? Meaning you were interviewing for other positions, at least for one, the Troy University position. How did that evolve towards that process of leaving the Ivy League and leaving New England area and coming down south?
Right. Well, at the time that I interviewed here, I also interviewed at another school. I interviewed at Temple, and I actually got the job at Temple. Obviously I'm from Philly, so it was an interesting decision that I had to make, and it all ties together in the end. But for me, if I had stayed at home, I didn't think I was going to be able to do a good enough job leading a program. I think there would have been way too many distractions, and I didn't want to have that. And that's how I ended up at Troy, because I knew that it was a way. I had already spoken to them about the whole Michelle piece and being able to work together and how to make all that stuff work. And, it seemed like a good fit at the time. I wanted to get out of the cold. I wanted to get to some warm weather. I wanted to be I'm a sprint coach. I don't want to be indoors all year. And I was trying to get to that point. And, this was an opportunity that presented itself. None of us had any ties to the South, to Troy, to anything. So, it's just something that some things are meant to happen. And I think this is one of those things.
Well, before we get to the real reason of why you went to Troy, because I have inside knowledge of that, let's find out. Everybody wants to know. So, Marc, how did you propose? Well, you know what? In today's society, I don't want to presume. I'm so sorry. Who proposed to whom, and how did it go down?
There were two, kind of.
What do you mean, Richard?
Well, right after you had surgery.
Yeah, but the real one.
Yeah. At convention.
So at convention, essentially, I brought the ring to convention. What year? That was 2013. Brought the ring to convention, and I kind of separated us. Everybody at convention, all my friends, Lamont and everybody, they were all kind of in on what was happening. And she and I went back up to my room because I had said that I had forgotten something up there. So I had, what did we have? Did we have wine or beer or something in the room? There's wine or beer up in the room. And I said, hey, can you go and get some ice so I can put this stuff on ice while we go back downstairs? She left the room, and I just put the ring on top of the dresser, and just left it open, trying to see if she'd even notice that it was there. And she was sitting on a chair that was right next to the dresser. So she came in, brought the ice, put it in the bathroom, in the cooler that we had in there, and then sat down right next to it, right next to her head.
Didn't even see it.
Never noticed. Not at all. I just put it there. And we were having a conversation, and we were across the room, because I was sitting.
You were over by the window.
Yeah, I was over by the window, and I was sitting there just watching this, trying to see how long it was
now
going to take.
hold on. You're playing this a little too cool. You're not nervous at all?
Well,
I mean,
you had already talked to my dad.
I had already talked to her. Well, nervous for different reasons. So I spoke to her dad, and I told him that was my intention. And he said, Marc, are you sure about that? And I said, yes. He said, do you know what you're getting into? And I was like, I thought I did, but he is like, if you think you know and you think you're sure, you have my blessing. And I was like, all right, maybe I'm a little nervous at this point. I didn't know what was going on.
Man, but dad is either, I can't figure it out yet, either the worst salesman in the world or the best. I can't, it's one or the other. There's no in between there. But even
just honest.
Yeah. Well, your dad for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it was obviously all jokes, but
even when you know the answer is going to be yes, there's still nerves.
Oh yeah, there were definitely nerves. I just I was going to see, like, that's my personality. I like to have fun pretty much with everything that I do in every aspect, but my personal life, I like to have fun with the things. And, people do it the same way all the time. And like, I might be the least romantic person you'll ever meet in your life, I would say, most likely. She'll tell you that. I'm not something that I have to work on. I know I have faults, everybody does. But, I just wanted it to be kind of fun, see how long this was going to take for her to be, how observant she was going to be. And she finally turned around and sees it. And she was like, what's this? It's like, what's it look like? What does it look like? And she was like, oh, this is beautiful. I said, wait, what's it for? And I looked at her, I said, so will you? And she was like, tongue-tied, dumbfounded. It was just like how we usually, like whenever something happens on a personal level with her, she can't find the words to actually speak, so, and it was obviously she said yes. Took a little while. She's like, you serious? Are you telling the truth? Are you being serious? Are you being honest? It's like, yes, that's why I'm doing this. So I said, so will you? And obviously she said yes, and the rest is history. I mean, we waited a little while.
Michelle, did you have any inkling that he was going to propose? Kind of a two-parter, right? Any inkling that he was going to propose at all, but during that time frame, like at convention or December-ish,
I mean, we had talked about getting married. Because we had discussed, at the time I was perfectly happy in New Hampshire and Marc had a great thing at Yale. So we had talked about, what does our future look like in terms of like, if we do get married, are we going to stay 3 hours apart? Or are we just going to continue to make this work? And, we weren't 25 trying to figure this all out. So it was just kind of like, yeah, we're good with it. And everybody thought we were kind of crazy, but it worked.
Yeah. And again, I mean, we had been married before.
Right.
So it was different in terms of the second time around. So
yeah. And we each had a house. And so it was kind of like I had a place in New Haven, he had a place in Hanover. It's like I went to spring break with their team one year.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was just like all my kids knew it. They'd be like, Coach D, and like kind of like try to be quiet and vice versa. Heck, I was doing like some sports psych with some of the girls on his team. Yeah. Even then. So we just had a great situation. And so we had talked about it, but I had no idea like when, where, what, nothing.
And all my friends downstairs in the lobby knew because I had told them prior to.
And it was Hall of Fame dinner night, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So we were all dressed nice and we had gone downstairs. Well, no, we started to go downstairs. And then Marc was like, hey, meet me here. I forgot. I think you said you forgot your watch, which you did.
Probably did, yeah.
And he's like, I need to run up to the room, grab my watch, and we have a glass of wine. We still have some time. I was like, sweet. Now you're talking. So we went up there and yeah. So I had no, I mean, the pictures from that night, I remember exactly what I had on, everything. And like every picture, my smile is from like ear to ear. My face is bright red because I was just like so happy.
What did you think when you turned your head and finally saw the ring? Like, did it instantly hit you like, oh, this little booger? No, not at all. I was kind of like, because it wasn't Christmas. Christmas was like another week and a half away. And I was actually pretty confused because all I had, and if you look at my hand right now, I actually have a diamond on, but all I had ever said was, I've already had a diamond. You don't have to spend all that money. I want a non-traditional ring.
Music to my ears.
So that made him happy. And he was like, well, what do you mean non-traditional? And I was like, I'll take anything. Like, I just, whatever is good for me. And because the whole ECU thing does run very, very deep, he actually designed my ring. So it was like, it has 2 black diamonds and an amethyst in the middle. Me being so dainty, I have another ring that I got later, and that's what I'm wearing now. But I found a way to shear off a whole side of my amethyst.
I couldn't figure out why Maddie's hair kept getting stuck in my ring when I was braiding it every night. And finally one night I was like, what the? Oh my, only me. I swear to goodness
Wow.
gracious, only Michelle Clayton. So it's getting repaired right now. But anyways, so I was just like, this is really cool. And I was like, Mark? And he was like, yes. And I was like, clearly this is for me. It's purple, but what? And he was like, do you like it? I was like, why, yes. And then finally he was like, so will you? And I was like, serious? Really? Are you, what? You want me to marry you? And I was like, will you take it out of the box and put it on? You remember that?
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it on myself. I was like, will you take it out of the box, please, and put it on, please, please, please.
And that was the evening.
And that was it.
Wow.
So yeah.
USTFCCA convention where love blossoms. Where was that? What, Orlando, San Antonio, Phoenix?
Orlando.
Was that one back in
I think it
Orlando?
was in Orlando. It was Orlando.
Okay.
Sure.
Orlando, sure.
Orlando.
It was one of three choices back then.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it definitely wasn't San Antonio. You sure it wasn't Phoenix? You sure it wasn't? We did it.
It was in
because-
Phoenix. Sorry, it was in Phoenix.
It was
It was in
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Yes.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good choice of a ring too. I like unique rings. Michelle, you sound like the type of person that those silicone bands were invented for.
Oh,
Yeah, I knew you had yours. Yeah.
we both own like one of every color pretty much. Yeah, that's definitely what I need to get back to. I don't know why I decided to be like girly chick this year and start wearing my ring more. And I guess I learned the hard way.
Well, there's
So,
a place for that for sure, but they are not the most, sturdy for a lot of other activities. You don't want to go riding your bike wearing that. You don't want to be in the weight room. I mean, you
Yeah.
need that for like, oh, I'm going to go to dinner or something like that. That's why
Right.
AIM wears her wedding ring most of the time, not the engagement ring because it's has the,
Right.
the diamond on it or whatever. And but half the time she's busy doing stuff, so she doesn't wear it at all. And I'm like, whatever. And we're still married, and that the ring don't mean anything as far as marriage. Yeah.
exactly.
That's already paid for. I'm still paying for the marriage, the the relationship. I'm still paying and working on that part.
That one doesn't go anywhere.
Nope. Those bills always still come.
So as you guys are engaged and there's a lot of excitement that goes along with that and planning, of course, along that same time frame, you are interviewing for a couple of different jobs, one being the most important job. This question's for Michelle, how did that play into your plans as far as what you thought where you guys would end up?
I was at camp. I was working at camp and Mark calls me. I was in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Working camp, and Mark calls me, and because it was like he kept checking, like, just looking at jobs and head coaching jobs and so on and so forth. Because he had made that like known the year before, like he really wanted to get his own program and give it a try and kind of spread his wings that way. And so he was just checking things out, and here I am at camp, sweating my tail off, and my phone rings, and it was him. So I didn't answer it. And then he called right back, and I was like, oh God, is something wrong? So I was like, sorry guys, 1 second. So I answer it. And this is exactly how the conversation went. I was like, hey babe. Hey. Yes. Troy. That's all he said. I said, apply. He said, huh? I said, it's in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. They have dang good throwers. Apply. I thought about myself immediately.
I was like, I think you're forgetting the most important part of this right now.
And he was like, okay. I said, they've had some really good sprinters too. I was like, just apply, see how it goes. And good heavens. Then we were at Princeton camp working together, right?
Yeah.
And they called.
Yeah, and it had been
Weeks.
I mean, I think a month, 4 weeks had gone by, and I hadn't heard anything. I was like, well, I guess that wasn't going to happen.
And he was like,
And,
I guess we're going to stay. I guess.
Actually, no, that isn't true because Sandy had called me, and we were talking about, she was trying to schedule a phone interview. We ended up on the phone for about an hour. She goes, well, I guess that'll serve as your phone interview. I said, okay, no problem. And then she said, we'll be back in touch when we're ready to start setting up on campus interviews. And like I said, 4 weeks go by then. I was like, all right, well, I guess that one didn't work so well.
We were going on vacation the following week.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, of course this is gonna happen. And lo and behold, it did.
Yeah. And we were at the Princeton camp. They called, they scheduled the interview. It came down, and it was a good interview. That was, I think, honestly, the best interview I think I've ever given. I was nervous because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what kind of questions to expect for, a place like this, because it was so different for me. It was just a completely different place than where I was coming from. But, and then I came back, and like my head was just, it was on fire. Just because it's all the questions, the amount of people that I met with, and even with my Yale interview, it was an assistant coaching position, so I didn't meet with as many people. I certainly didn't meet the president of the university, the chancellor of the university at that time. I mean, it was just a different experience. And I got back, and I was like, I think I liked it down there. It was not bad. I liked what I saw. I liked what they were saying. I said there were some drawbacks in terms of staffing and things like that, but we can make it work. If you go down there and you have any type of gumption and just want to get your hands dirty, it's the place to go, and that's what we've done and have enjoyed. We have enjoyed it the whole time we've been down here. It's been, like I said, there's some
Been
rough
work.
patches, and it's been work, but the amount of work that we've done, I knew I wasn't gonna be able to do this unless she was here with me, though, like in terms of starting something pretty much from scratch, and that's basically what we did. I mean, we had to start all over again. It's paid off. Definitely paid off.
So you mentioned the, I'll call it the camaraderie of the Ivy League coaches. And so you'd already gotten scheduled to come down for your interview. You hadn't come down yet for the actual interview. And a good friend of all of ours, Marc Mangiacotti. And Marc said, hey, I know a guy who knows a lot about Troy. Maybe, do you want to call him? And so he gave you my phone number. So I remember like it was yesterday, I'm in Sacramento for nationals. And so I'm up, I'm doing what I do best when we set up for track meets. I'm up in the hospitality suite while everybody else is. But I'm up there and the phone rings, and I try to put everybody I can in my phone nowadays, but back then I did not have your phone. I'm so sorry. I did not know who you were, Marc Davis. I'm sorry. It's terrible.
That's all right.
And so you call it, hey, my name is Marc Davis, mutual friend of ours, Marc Mangiacotti, said I should probably call you. He says, you know a little bit about Troy. You used to work at Troy. And I was like, oh yeah. I know Troy, buddy. I was like that might be one of my favorite things to talk about. Sure. Yeah. And so you're like, well, I'm going down to interview, and I just had some questions, and I don't remember, your questions were pretty standard questions, like, hey, what did you think about it while you were there, Mike, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm telling you how like freaking awesome I'm like, it changed my life, and and you're like, oh, all right, thanks, cool. And so you got done, and I was like, well, Marc, I was like, well, you okay if I ask you a couple of questions? And you're like, yeah, sure. I was like, I really just got two questions, or no, I think I only had one question. I said, so you coach at Yale, right? Now I grew up in the South.
Yep, you did.
There when I was coming out of high school, there was no thoughts of going to Harvard and Yale. Like that was like that. That might as well have been Mars. Like we didn't go to schools like that. So, I'm like, Yale, man, you work at Yale, and you're like, yeah. And I was like, all right. I was like, well, I got good news and I got bad news. And you said, oh, okay. What's the good news? And I was like, well, I said, you ain't gonna have to worry about 32 ACTs and whatever the SAT. I don't even know what I can barely spell the SAT, right? But I was like, you ain't got to worry about recruiting that highest level of academic kids. I was like, that's good. And you're like, oh, that's good. And you're like, well, what's the bad news? And I was like, oh, you will always be concerned with academics. Like I think I even asked you, I was like, do you even do study hall at Yale? And you're like, nah, not really. And I was like, yeah, you will always have study hall, man. It's like that's a given. Through senior year, you might have some kids that graduate and you still need to put them in study hall. Like that's just like, you're going to have it. Right?
Yep. And that is, yep. Day to day, I'm sweating.
But I was
study hall.
But I was really impressed with, first of all, for you reaching out to me. Honestly, I mean, there's some people, I was and am, sales guy at Gill. What's it matter what my opinion was when I was there. And, I was an undergraduate assistant coach there. So it's not like I was a full-time, paid staff and things like that. But that you sought out my opinion, like it not only did it mean something to me because it's a university that I love dearly, but it was more about like, oh, it's what it said about you. It's like, oh, this is the kind of guy who, like, if he has the ability, no stone will go unturned to make the right decisions. Like, if no one knew me, they couldn't get you in touch with me, then, that was okay. But since Marc was like, oh yeah, I know a guy, you might want to talk to him. You're like, all right, well, this guy might not be able to offer me anything to help me make a decision, but I'll, let me hear him out and ask him some questions. So it just meant a lot to me. It spoke volumes about you and your preparation on how you conduct yourself. You mentioned, so you've been there, was this past year the 7th year or 6th year?
7th. Yep.
7th.
7th.
So you're going on
past year.
We're in 7 now.
Okay, so we're in 7 year, and even with the shortened year last year, runner up on the women's side indoor, which I think, well, I know highest placing in the Sun Belt that we've ever had. I can't even, I don't even remember us having an indoor conference back when I was there, when we were TAC and what was the other conference?
Atlantic Sun?
Atlantic Sun, yeah, ASUN, yeah. But we won some outdoor championships on both men and women's side, but for sure, since the Sun Belt, and the Sun Belt has gotten, I mean, it was a good conference, and it's a really good conference now, especially with the additions of, was it Texas State and someone else were kind of the newest members, I think it was, right?
App State also.
App State, yeah, that's right, another solid team, right? When you got in there, especially because you have at least one assistant that you can really count on, right? You got Michelle. Did you think that you were going to be able to change things much quicker than you did? And I don't mean that in a slight, meaning that, oh, why didn't this happen in year 2 or 3? I assume that maybe the thought process, the plan was to happen in 2 or 3, but real life happens, and it takes year 6 and year 7. Talk to us about that process of what the expectations you had and then the reality, and how did you continue to stay motivated and continue tweaking your plan to where you got to where you are today as a staff and as a team?
Right. I think when I first knew and realized that I was actually moving to Alabama, coming to Troy, and having the ability to have, anybody that we wanted to look at had the opportunity to come to Troy. Obviously you hit the nail on the head, 32 ACT, over 3.7, 3.8, you didn't have to necessarily worry about that. And I remember one of my first things I did was I got something for a kid. I took my transcript over to the academic side, over to academics. And I was like, do you think this kid will be able to get in? And they're looking at it and they're looking at me and they're like, why wouldn't he be able to get in? So my mindset was completely different, so I realized I didn't have to put as much emphasis on reading the applications like I was at Yale, like before I even presented it. So that was one of the things that eased my mind a little bit in terms of recruiting. So we got past that part. I did think it was going to be a shorter process because of that, being able to get different athletes in, different caliber athlete in. I thought it was going to take a little bit shorter of a time frame. Things don't always happen the way you want to. And I think that one thing about me is if I get my mindset on doing something, I'm just going to keep kind of grinding. And I was fortunate enough to have enough people around me that wanted to do what I was looking for and share the same vision I had for the team. And our grad assistants, they did a bulk of the recruiting for sprints, jumps, hurdles for us. They did a lot of identifying, talking, most of it, and bringing kids into campus. And you're not going to find that very often because the structures don't dictate that. They are counters when it comes down to recruiting. And, with us only having at the time 3 full-time staff members, you have to utilize that. And, I have always heard coaches say you have to let your coaches coach. And that's what I have tried to do. And part of the coaching job is got to let them recruit too. They see talent, they see how kids move and how they operate, and they get to know kids. It's a great thing. So I think getting the pieces in place, I think that's helped us a lot. We've gotten a lot of good, sprinters and hurdlers and stuff over the past couple of years. And, kids, coaches like Ronaldo Radlin and Josh Biot and Camille Alexander, they've helped out, obviously Elliot and Michelle, they were the full-time people, but at that time we only had one full-time or two full-time people. So it has helped us tremendously to be able to move to where we've gotten, which we're still not done yet. We're still looking to definitely improve. We've done so much work on the back end too. Like there's so many things that we end up doing that a lot of coaches and a lot of places you don't have to do. We are grinding on a regular basis. And I think that's why we've done what we've done. The kids see that we're always there. The kids see that we can always be reached, and we're always there if they need us. I think administration sees that we're not afraid to get our hands dirty and do things ourselves. And I think that's why we've gone forward and we've made the strides that we've made. So I am happy with the progress, because God knows there are some big time struggles at times. And sometimes you do question yourself, like, what did I get myself into? What am I doing? But, just keep seeing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I will tell you that these kids have responded so well at the right times. If you look at the end of each season, when it comes down to them having to compete at the championship meet, they are ready to go. It could be hairy at the beginning of the year. But, at the end of the year, when it comes down to championships, usually they step up and do what we need them to do. And you see that, like, some of the frustration that you had and some of the I don't want to say ill feelings, but some of the negative feelings that you had throughout the season, maybe some things you were saying, it was sinking in with these kids. I think communication is or has been much, much better than what it was before. And kids will be kids. There's always going to be something that's going to come across your desk that you don't want to have to deal with, but it's just, you're going to have it. You got to have to deal with it. You have to move forward and just have to see how things play out as you go forward.
It's a lot like a 100-meter dash, right? They don't give out the 10 points at the 30-meter line or the 60-meter line. It's who's leading at the 100-meter finish line, right? So a season is a lot like that. They don't give a conference championship in March or April or the beginning of May. Yeah. It's a process to get to that finish line, to that outdoor conference championship, and then for the individual athlete as they go on to nationals. Absolutely. You mentioned the different staff members you've had, and you've had some amazing. It's so fun. I love talking about and talking with the Troy coaching tree. We've had guys and gals before you guys like Sean Williams and JJ Downs and such, and then Brad, of course, and Josh. I mean, just and Elliot, who you guys must be doing something right that Elliot's still there. And I mean that in all the good ways, because Elliot is a superstar that will, if he wants to have his own program, will have his own program one day. I mean, the pedigree from his athleticism, obviously, to just who and how he is it's just evident. The first time I met him, I was like, oh, like, I think the world of Troy. And I was like, are you too good for a Troy? Like, and I'm saying that wasn't his attitude. It was more me like, dude, what are you doing here, man? Like it's the same way I think of our basketball arena at Troy. I'm like, what's that doing in Troy? Like, that's supposed to be at Duke and, UNC and stuff. Like, this in Troy? That's amazing. It's awesome. It's really amazing. So, you guys obviously have great relationships with a lot of people. And we had a question that came from Twitter, and I warned you that it came from Lamont Johnson. Lamont's a smart guy. I almost said but. You know what but does when you say it in the middle of a sentence, right? It erases everything in front of it. So I don't want to say but. Lamont Johnson is a smart guy, and he asks some interesting questions sometimes on Twitter. So the question's a pretty hard question for you to actually answer because of the way he asked it. But Lamont asked me to ask you about the hidden deal that you and Lamont have. Now, it's a hidden deal. So for you to tell me the answer, it has to has to be unhidden. So I'm not sure you can answer that question.
I really can't. I got to keep that between Mont and I.
That's what I thought.
Mont, come on, man.
I think what we might have to do, what the cool kids call, we might have to slide in each other's DMs and get the answer to this hidden deal that you and Lamont have.
That boy is funny. He is a funny kid. Funny kid. I remember a couple of years ago, we were up in New York. Well, I say a couple of years ago, it was 4 years ago. We were up in New York, and it was over Christmas break. And we called Lamont, and we were just like, hey, come on out, man. It was me and my brother, Michelle, and my sister-in-law. And we just went out in New York and just had a fun time, man. That kid,
He was like, meet me at this hotel in the lobby. It's a really nice lobby. What?
you know how he is. I mean, we sat up and we talked all night long. It ended up, everybody else went to bed. It ended up being just me, my brother at the end of it. But yeah, he's a great guy. We've known each other for years now.
He gets, a lot of pass because he's a Troy coach and alum. So, he holds a special place in my heart just for that alone. If you ever want secret hints and tips from Mike Cunningham, just work at Troy and you get everything, man. That's just whatever you want.
Everything, yes.
Yeah, you just get it all.
You definitely help me out here for sure.
Well, thanks. I would do that and will do that no matter where you are, but definitely helps because you're at my alma mater. That's for sure. I don't have this job if I don't have a degree from Troy. So, I owe a lot to that university. That's for sure. Well, as we start to wrap up, Marc and Michelle, there is one question that I had. Like if I was on the outside and I had to put in a Twitter question, this would have been my Twitter question, and it's for Michelle. So you grew up in North Carolina. You coached in North Carolina. You now have been at Troy for 7, going on 8 years. Why is the accent still like Boston? I mean, I don't understand. Where do you listen to tapes of Boston people talking so you have it? I mean, I just don't understand. I can't even say keep it because you grew up in North Carolina. So talk to me about this accent.
My family asked the same thing. I really, I just kind of contributed to, I was in North Carolina for a while, but early on we were everywhere, all over the Northeast. And so my dad worked a lot. I mean, there were 4 of us plus mom. And so literally school would get out like on a Friday, and Sunday night, well, my mom liked to leave at the crack of dawn. Like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, the 5 of us, the 4 girls and mom, would load up in whatever vehicle we had and head to New York. And we'd essentially I used to go work out at the gymnastics gym up there. I mean, it was just like kind of our summer home, but it was at my aunt's house. So we did that all the way through like my freshman year in high school. So all summer we'd be in New York, and then we'd go back to wherever we were. And then when I went to college, it just so happened we had a huge contingent. Like our whole team was from New Jersey, I swear. And my roommates, sorry, the nugget is on the trampoline crying. My roommates were softball players, and they were from Ohio, Oregon, New York. It's just, I don't know. I never really found that deep root in that North Carolina, I guess, because I was just still so remote. So yeah, my family's like, Michelle, what the heck? And then when I went to New Hampshire, it got worse. There's enough, I never lived in Boston my entire life, but there was enough Boston influence there that I guess I don't know. Because people will be like, where are you? And of course, down here, I open my mouth and it's just like, you're not from here, are you? No, sorry.
Have you picked up any Southern slang? Like, do you say y'all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No. I won't say that one. He says it. I will not. But yeah,
do you say the very New England use guys?
I do.
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
Use guys. Yeah.
That's how
I used to say yeah.
That's how you get kicked out of the state of Alabama.
Yeah. Use guys, she was saying before she got to Dartmouth too. So.
Yeah, I've always said that. Like that was something that never left me.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll be sitting on the couch, and because Maddie's accent, if we let her talk to you, unbelievable. She has friends, not friends, but frames.
Yeah, it's real thick.
You know, I wonder if
and
that is a product of the age. So Cassidy is 7 years old, has grown up in Eastern Central Illinois her whole life. I don't even know, I guess we've been south, but not for long or anything. You know, we went to Orange Beach a couple of years ago for a week or whatever. She has friends and she says things.
Yes,
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, are just like, you're more Southern than I am. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not hearing the, like, I just don't understand where she gets this very Southern accent. It's amazing.
it's like, what was she singing the other? She was singing "This Little Light of Mine," and she said, "This little light of mine."
Is that our kids?
Mark goes, "Michelle, did you just hear that?" I said, "Mads, what are you singing?" She said, "This little light of mine." I said, "Oh my goodness gracious!"
Corrects me.
So
up.
it is funny. So between the three of us, you can't ever tell where in the heck we actually came from.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah, Mark, you've got the what they call the newscaster accent, meaning no accent. Like I could not tell you grew up in Pennsylvania. You might as well have grown up. I can't even say Nebraska. Like I was trying to think like right in the middle, but you mean you just have
Right
that,
in the, yeah.
yeah, right there, like the professional, the voice, right? You know, Michelle, you seem like you still summer in Cape Cod or something like that. And then Maddie is drinking her sweet tea, sitting on the porch,
Hanging with her friends.
hanging with her friends. That's right. That's right.
Friends.
All right, Mark. This is the last opportunity. So, what do we got to do to get the saxophone out and just hear a couple of chords, a couple of notes?
You gotta give me some time. I gotta get them fixed. They really don't. They're not in good condition to actually play. It's been a while. I didn't play them at all over.
That's okay. I'm
Mike,
okay with that. But you did mention some bongo drums.
Oh, we can get the bongos.
No, we can't. Let's just leave that alone. So, like, sometime we'll put on when Elliot comes on. If he does this, I'll play some stuff for you.
All right, that sounds good.
Or I got a better one. I think that when and if we appear in Eugene, Oregon in June, I think Mark should have to find a sax to rent, and we should have to do a quick podcast of him playing.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you? This could be the worst question in the world. Can you play Ice Ice Baby on a saxophone?
I do. That would be a hard one.
Because if you can, I can. I'll do the karaoke for it.
We will work on it. We will be ready. I promise.
I forgot about that.
Promise.
I'll say it's been too many weeks. I have not been able to talk about Rob on the podcast, so I had to get it there with Vanilla Ice, the reference. Absolutely. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'm just honestly, it's your journeys as individual, as coaches, not just track coaches, but as coaches is phenomenal, and really, groundbreaking in a lot of cases, not just you, Michelle, you as well, Mark. A lot of the things that you're doing, are modeled after other people, and what you do now is the model for more people. More people get to see people like themselves achieving success in their professions, and that emboldens people to know that there is no ceiling. There is definitely perceived ceiling, and people put ceilings on others, but in reality, any of us can do anything in a lot of contexts. And so seeing your examples and having Maddie seeing your guys' examples, not only professionally, but personally, as a happy marriage unit, that's the kind of thing that changes lives. Maddie's life will be changed and be positive. The kids on your team have these examples. They will go on to have, a healthy example of what a marriage should look like, and what two people working together and parenthood and things like that. They'll get to go on and move on and achieve success because of the examples that you guys set. So I'm just so thankful that you'd spend some time with us today and share your story with others that will be impacted by the journey you've gone on.
We appreciate you having us.
Thank you so much.
Well, I was going to do today's outro in a Boston accent, but I'm going to just let that go and just do my normal, regular, just be thankful that I don't have my Southern voice that I used to have pretty bad back in the day. Maybe I'll tell that story one day, but for now, that's a wrap. So just want to thank Michelle and Mark so much for being here today. Really appreciate your authenticity and your openness to share with us. I mean, you literally opened your house to us today. You know, we got to have cameos by Maddie, who we love to death, and even Petey made an appearance. So if you want to see this lovely family, you want to go on YouTube and check it out. Otherwise, you just have to deal with their accents and deal with it here on the audio portion only. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, it would really mean the world to all of us if you would consider subscribing to the show. That way you'll know exactly when we publish episodes on a weekly basis. And even more importantly, if you found value in today's conversation, and I know I did, so I truly hope you did as well. There's probably others in your network that would receive value as well. So if you would just take a second, hit that share button, share it on Facebook, Twitter, smoke signals, whatever you like to use out there for social media, that would just mean the absolute world to me and to our guest today as well. And then otherwise, man, I'll see you next week. We're going to do it again. We're going to connect with another awesome coach, maybe two of them, who knows? Maybe we'll make this a series. So thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate you guys very, very much. We'll see you next week.